Chapter 17:18. Ka ka ka. Han Dong dug out the extra strange teeth in his mouth and became curious about the identity of the guard. Examining the mouth-shaped entrance and the mysterious man with silver teeth, he could roughly see that the party entrance was affected by this person's domain, which was why it became like this. If the guard was changed, it would probably be another entrance. As he followed into the mouth, Han Dong quietly asked, "Grim, who is this?" "Tooth Emperor, Baron Regans, 231 years before me, born from my father's broken tooth. According to the relationship between you humans, he is my elder brother. This guy is much stronger than the other children, and he has a good relationship with me. Don't look at him as a guardian. His strength is very strong, even in the party. Many of the old Wangdu who are in power are not his opponents." "So strong? Then why doesn't he have a throne? Some people are not born to become a king. His strength reached the standard 100 years ago, and he is fully qualified to compete for the throne. It's just that he doesn't have the heart to take care of the city or the kingdom, and he didn't participate in the competition for the throne. He is more willing to stay in the Abyss Party for endless eating, drinking, and fun. Even so, this guy's strength has been increasing. It seems that staying in the Abyss Party to release madness is his best path of development. Everyone has their own choice. In fact, this is not bad." They continued to follow to the entrance of the assessment area. He thought that for a top place like this, the entrance assessment would inevitably be carried out in a gorgeous and formal area. But in front of him was a small room that had been sealed for a long time, similar to an equipment room. There were some ancient stone instruments installed inside, which seemed to be able to measure the relevant abilities of an individual through contact. However, the Tooth Emperor fiddled in front of the instrument for a long time, but couldn't activate it normally. In a hurry, he even bit a huge hole in the instrument, completely destroying the instrument. Han Dong asked awkwardly, "Are these things not used often? How do the other testers enter?" "Well, different guards have different standards. Because Grim brought you here, I thought of testing you in the most conventional way. Under normal circumstances, it's not so simple. Everyone will take advantage of their position and get some rebates. As long as you can bring out something of value, we will go easy on you. Even if someone who wasn't strong enough was put in, they could still add some nourishment to the party and wouldn't be held responsible at all. So I can't use any of these antiques." What was he going to do? "I might as well just let you guys in. But I'm still very curious as to how you could come here with your atavistic body and even meet Father in the center of the chaos." Han Dong suddenly made a suggestion. "How about this? Senior Tooth Emperor will give me a test alone, no matter what form it takes. If you think I meet the standard, then let me in." Although the entrance examination seems very casual, since there is such a setting, there must be a reason for its existence. "Oh." The Tooth Emperor revealed a rarely seen strange smile. "My assessment methods are all relatively dangerous. Are you sure you want to proceed? Of course, considering that you're Green's friends, I will choose a relatively safe way. To be tested by an expert like Senior is an opportunity in itself." When Han Dong heard the description of the Tooth Emperor, he was thinking about this matter in his heart. Although it seemed quite crazy in Han Dong's eyes, it was a great opportunity to promote his cognition and growth. "The difference in level between us is too big, so we won't carry out the combat assessment. From the moment you met me until now, you have been constantly affected by the tooth sound. However, you are completely fine, especially on the spiritual level. Moreover, your head is still emitting a gray aura, which seems to have a lot to do with the walker. How about this? The assessment is mainly based on the spiritual influence, and the location is set in my mouth. If you can last 3 minutes in my mouth, I will let you pass." "Okay." Han Dong had just agreed. A silver light flashed in front of his eyes. There was no warning at all, nor was there any reaction. Even if the formless domain was maintained, Han Dong's body only took a small step back, and he couldn't dodge at all. In the blink of an eye, Han Dong was already standing on the surface of a jagged, cold, and strange tongue. This is the Tooth Emperor's mouth. Han Dong immediately observed the current space with his demon eye. It was barely compared to a human mouth for further description. Whether it was the upper part of the mouth or both sides, it was full of dense teeth. Even the surface of the tongue, where Han Dong was standing, was full of dense, uneven teeth. Not only that, there were also small holes on the surface of these teeth, and tentacles like tooth nerves drilled in and out, looking very painful. Crack, crack, crack. Under the wriggling of the nerve tentacles, a large number of teeth began to move, close to each other and fiercely rubbed against each other. The moment the sound came out, it directly brought a tearing pain to Han Dong's brain, and even the little finger of his right hand was torn off without warning, and blood flowed nonstop. The dual effect of the mind and the body. Han Dong no longer held back and immediately responded with all his strength. Using the torn little finger, he drew an exaggerated red smile along the outside of his lips. In reality, because Han Dong was instantly swallowed into the Tooth Emperor's mouth, Sally clamped her legs out of worry. She had heard of the Tooth Emperor's name. In her impression, this guy was ridiculously strong. Grim, on the other hand, didn't seem to care and even fiddled with the ancient equipment in the assessment area out of boredom. The Tooth Emperor asked curiously, "Grim, what's the relationship between this kid and you? Why did you bring him here personally?" "Nicholas is my only close friend. I naturally have to bring him to the Abyss party to have a good time." "Close friend? This is the first time I've seen you use such a word. But you don't seem to be worried at all. You should know that my assessment belongs to the more dangerous category. With such a big difference in level, I don't have the confidence to hold back." "Don't worry, Nicholas won't die." At this moment, the Tooth Emperor suddenly felt that something was wrong, and his mouth was filled with an indescribable strange feeling. Ha ha ha! Waves of ethereal, faintly discernible laughter seemed to be stuck to the gaps between the Tooth Emperor's teeth, slowly spreading outwards. This is gradually. At the same time as the laughter intensified, it was accompanied by a rare toothache. Because he had been playing in the party for many years, the Tooth Emperor had almost forgotten the feeling of toothache. When the long-lost feeling came, it was a little uncomfortable, but at the same time, it revealed a burst of dark pleasure, and its body began to tremble slightly. As time passed, the toothache continued to intensify, as if needles were poking into the depths of the gums and constantly stirring. 3 minutes passed. The excited Tooth Emperor spat out Han Dong's entire body. At this time, if one were to observe the Tooth Emperor's mouth, they would find that the surface of most of the teeth was branded with a red smiley face mark. The effect of the fatal joke continued to be applied. Slap. However, as the Tooth Emperor slapped his lower jaw, the shock instantly tore the smiley face into pieces. "I've never seen your madness before, and whether it's quality or rarity, they are all top-notch, and you have reached the mythical level in some aspects, so that's how it is. Go and have fun." Chapter 1719. After feeling Han Dong's crazy quality and characteristics, Tooth Emperor Baron Regans left the assessment area with satisfaction. He returned to the entrance and took up his job as a guard. Since he had lost all his capital, he still owed a lot of money. The Tooth Emperor's guard job was expected to take 912 years to pay off all his debts. Of course, this was only an estimated number of years. As long as a few more outsiders came to the party and collected some special fees, he would be able to pay off the debt quickly. If he was lucky, he could even compress the time to within a year. In the only aisle leading to the Abyss party, Han Dong was leaning against the side of the wall, doing a very necessary thing: tooth extraction. For the Tooth Emperor, the crazy laughter made his teeth hurt a little during the 3-minute assessment. He even felt a little happy because he hadn't experienced such pain for a long time. Han Dong, on the other hand, was having a hard time, even if he used crazy laughter to defend himself. Even if the assessment only lasted for 3 minutes, the injury it brought to Han Dong was quite serious. Sally, who was beside him, was also extremely uncomfortable. She was carefully helping to deal with the tooth injury, whether it was the head or the body, whether it was the surface or the inside of the body. There were no gaps, and it was full of densely packed silver teeth. Even his consciousness was invaded. A few teeth grew on the surface of the tombstone in the space of consciousness. However, the overall proportion was not large, and his consciousness was still stable. Obviously, this crazy invasion related to teeth had seeped into every corner of his body. Only the talent tree had not been eroded. This was the only thing worth rejoicing about. The Tooth Emperor was only responsible for the assessment and had no obligation to deal with the follow-up. The current Han Dong looked like a tooth man. Each tooth was wriggling slightly on the surface of his body, continuously absorbing energy and nibbling away at his body. Even if Han Dong's lips were full of teeth, he still maintained a strange smile. It seemed that the harvest brought by this assessment was far greater than the physical pain. "Sally, help me pull out quickly. Don't worry about the wound." Okay, this was not an ordinary tooth extraction. These teeth came from the Tooth Emperor, and at the bottom were connected to at least 5 nerve roots, firmly clasped between the layers of flesh. Moreover, the worst were the teeth that grew in the body, especially some teeth that grew on the surface of organs, which were extremely deadly. Cough, cough, cough. Han Dong, whose body had been plucked into a bloody mess, was coughing violently. He kept coughing out the teeth that had been dug out from his body, and there was already a pile of them in front of him that was tens of centimeters high. Han Dong, who had finished stripping all the materials, sat cross-legged in the air. Underworld blood flowed through the entire body. Together with the G-virus, it regenerated and activated the stem cells. Sally asked with a puzzled expression, "Nicholas, why must you do this?" At that time, the Tooth Emperor clearly allowed us to enter directly. Why do we have to go through the assessment and get covered in injuries? What if we can't hold on during the party? No, this is good. To be able to let me experience the most important area of the Tooth Emperor's mouth for a full 3 minutes. To be able to feel the essence of insanity, teeth. This feeling was simply too great. My body even tolerated and adapted to some of this madness, which was of great help to my growth. As long as my soul and consciousness aren't damaged, I can repair them. Besides, my body was stuffed with sufficient, or even excessive, energy while I was falling asleep. It's a good opportunity to release myself. Due to the excess energy in his body, when Han Dong completed the repair, he still had 80% to 90% of the total energy value. Moreover, because of the tooth extraction just now, his mind was abnormally clear. The insanity brought by the Tooth Emperor also allowed Han Dong to enter the state in advance. It was equivalent to a warm-up exercise before entering the Abyss party. His right palm brushed past his face, reflecting a bright red, smiley face. His left hand used pure death magic to construct a black balloon in his hand. The surface of the balloon was also smeared with a smiley face. "Let's go. It's time for us to enter." Grim, who was waiting in the depths of the passage, immediately smelled a familiar aura that made him excited. When he turned around and caught a glimpse of Han Dong's image, his body also became excited, and the holes all over his body also shrank back and forth. "Nicholas, you're amazing. Is this the reason why you took the initiative to ask the Tooth Emperor to assess you, by using him, a gambler who has been mingling with parties for a long time, to achieve an early adaptation?" Grim took the initiative to step forward and directly put his hand on Han Dong's shoulder. The small holes that shrank between his arms were also tightly attached to the surface of his shoulders. A kind of crazy interaction had begun. Not far ahead was the exit of the passage. The blurry light and shadow emitted by the exit could effectively block the penetration of the magic eye. Before stepping out of the passage, there was no way to know what the outside of the exit corresponded to. Was it an exaggerated and bottomless bloody party? Or was it an open party with a theme of madness, full of danger and opportunity? Or was it a banquet where demons danced wildly, without any restrictions, killing and devouring each other? Just as Han Dong stepped out of the passage with great curiosity, the scene in front of him suddenly stunned him, and the black balloon in his hand also became a very ordinary calm expression. Sally, who was following behind him, was also somewhat puzzled by the situation in front of her. It was very different from what she had imagined. a fully sealed round hut with an area of less than 50 square meters. It was also made of indestructible chaos stones. Other than a colored door at the front, there were no other decorations. In addition, there was a special creature standing in the center of the room. Its stooped body was shrouded in a broken chaos cloak. It had a total of 6 arms, symmetrically spread out on its back. On its fingers, the wrinkled skin on the surface of its body, and even the curved tongue that stretched out were full of iron rings and keys. Only the 2 arms that stretched out in front of it remained clean. It held a square black box in front of it that was 30 by 30 by 30 centimeters. Han Dong could feel a powerful and primitive chaos energy from this creature's body. Grim, this is when Pops created the Abyss Party. He personally created the person in charge, also known as the Everything that we will experience in the Abyss Party is related to it. Come on, Nicholas, reach into the black box and pull out a key. The color and size of the key will correspond to the type of party we will experience next. There's such a setting? Han Dong did not refuse and immediately stepped forward. Grim quickly added, "All right, don't play any tricks during the extraction of the key. Once caught by the keymaker, your arm will be his food. The soul of the arm will be permanently imprisoned in the black box, and the key will make a brand new party key." Okay, Han Dong chose to put his left arm into it, which would be a little safer. Just as his arm touched the key in the box, Han Dong's eyes immediately widened. What he touched was not a cold key at all, but a constantly struggling arm, eager to grab Han Dong's palm, begging to escape the black box. Chapter 17:20. The black box in the hands of the key holder has a built-in space. When Han Dong reached in, it was like rummaging through a pile of hybrid demons' broken arms. Although it felt weird, Han Dong quickly accepted this setting. A long delay or the use of any ability to explore is against the rules, and the arm will be permanently cut off by the key holder. The only thing that can be used is intuition. Since it's the first time coming to the Abyss Party, it's better to be steady. Han Dong completed the handshake with one of the broken arms by feeling. When this action was completed, the arm held by Han Dong immediately compressed the flesh and turned into the shape of a key. "Tada, I've chosen it." When he pulled out the black box, a red key with a square structure was held in his hand. Clang, the key group on the key holder's body made a fierce collision sound due to shaking, and the black box was kept in the body, unable to be extracted a second time. "Oh, your luck is really good, Nicholas." This kind of opening is indeed more suitable for newcomers like you. Come with me. As long as you insert the key into the lock of this door, we will start the first party. Green, don't worry, we should be able to stay in the current area for a while, right? If we stay for a long time, will the key holder attack us? In theory, we are allowed to rest here for up to an hour. After all, some of the corresponding parties will be very dangerous, and my father kindly gave us the time to stay in the design. An hour? Green, why don't you explain the relationship between this key and the party in detail? Yes, I forgot to explain the rules here to you. This is still very necessary. The color, specification, and model of the key have different meanings. First of all, let's talk about the color. The colors are divided into 3 types: red, party house, which is the color you draw. The interior corresponds to a party in the conventional sense. We can party inside, enjoy all kinds of food, and engage in all kinds of entertainment, such as Tooth Emperor's favorite gambling. Green, opportunity house. It belongs to the form of party I hate the most. Every individual or group who enters the party will get an opportunity card and must complete the corresponding requirements according to the instructions on it. Although the corresponding reward will be given according to the indicated difficulty afterwards. If you can't complete it, you will be directly removed from the Abyss Party and may even be seriously injured or even die. Blue, unknown house. This was rather interesting. The interior corresponded to a completely unknown party mode. It could be an absolute death match, or it could be a masquerade ball. If one's luck was good, they might even be able to obtain some treasures or extremely rare qualifications during the party. That was all there was to the color. As for the type of key, which was the structure of the key teeth, it was also divided into three types. The square teeth symbolize peace. Whether it was the type of party or the participants of the party, they were all relatively stable. No one would take the initiative to attack. In fact, they could even engage in crazy exchanges without restraint. The corrugated key teeth symbolize intensity. The party scene was very exciting, and it would actively stimulate the participants to have physical or mental collisions. The weak would either become slaves or be sent directly to the kitchen to be processed as ingredients. Key teeth without any rules symbolize chaos, and chaotic parties without rules are my favorite type. Han Dong nodded after hearing the explanation. 9 different types of combinations? From the sound of it, my red square key was indeed the simplest choice. I could get used to it in advance. By the way, I have another question. Can we only participate in one abyss party, or can we draw a key after every party and continue to the next one? It was not easy for everyone to come here. Of course, we can't just leave after one party. As long as your spirit and body can hold on, we can keep going. We have to have fun this time. Maybe you, Nicholas, can complete the mythical structure during the party. I hope so. The black balloon in Han Dong's hand turned back into a smiling face. He inserted the key in his hand into the rainbow door. Click. When he heard the sound of the lock turning, Grim, who was beside him, pushed the rainbow door open forcefully. A large, rotten, swollen, and withered party venue came into view. Waves of powerful aura with different characteristics rushed toward them. Whether it was the guests on the dance floor who were madly dancing with all kinds of limbs, or the gamblers who took out all kinds of belongings, treasures, and even cut off their own limbs to bet in front of the flesh gambling table, or the guests who were communicating with all kinds of tentacles and bodies in the room made of flesh net. Each of them was incomparably powerful. Most of them were at the late stage of the mythical stage, and there were also a few real regent levels mixed in. Among them, Han Dong also caught the strongest aura, stronger than the average regent. It came from the center, the chaotic dance floor. An ancient Naga with a silver-scaled snake tail and a noble snake staff was performing a crazy dance that was similar to that of a primitive tribe. As he danced, the other guests on the dance floor would climb all kinds of strange snakes and bite into the back of their heads, ensuring that everyone's dance steps were the same through a special nerve control. It seemed very dangerous, but it was actually a kind of opportunity. The individuals controlled by the strange snakes would receive the gift of the Snake Father. They could get a unique insight during the dance, similar to the Bufo's wall observation. Even Grimm's eyes widened. Oh, I didn't expect the Snake Father to come. This is a relatively big role, and it belongs to the same level as the Bufo, Han Dong. Let's go. Let's hurry over and try the snake dance. We can't miss such a rare opportunity. The floor of the party was paved with an extremely smooth hybrid demon blood vessel, which helped the individuals slide forward. If they were thirsty, they only needed to grab a blood vessel to drink high-quality, refined blood wine without any side effects. It could quickly replenish energy and stimulate the nerves, causing the individuals to fall into a state of excitement. They quickly slid to the chaotic dance floor. Han Dong, who was already prepared, immediately stepped in. Buzz. He was immediately enveloped by a kind of regent-level domain. Han Dong could clearly feel that a part of his flesh was forcibly peeled off, forming a gray snake with a black vortex mark on his abdomen. What kind of domain is this? It actually used me as a model and substrate to form a homologous snake with the same attributes. Just as Han Dong was amazed, the gray snake had already opened its fangs and bit into the back of his head. In an instant, a stable consciousness connection was established, and Han Dong's body quickly danced with the rhythm of the Snake Father. His consciousness followed the passage established by the homologous snake into the brain of the Snake Father and came to an extremely ancient snake kingdom. Standing on top of the temple, below, tens of thousands of snake men were performing a ritual dance. A variety of ancient insights were being passed into Han Dong's consciousness through the form of dance. According to the different perception of the individual, the harvest was naturally different. Unconsciously, Han Dong's consciousness also followed the dance, and even slowly floated in the air. Chapter 17:21. Grim only danced for a while on the chaotic dance floor. Then he pulled out the homologous snake that bit the back of his head and left the dance floor. It was not that Grim looked down on such a snake dance. It was that this dance from the Serpentine Kingdom was not of much help to him, who was creating the King's District. The difference in compatibility was too big. Perhaps he would also get some inspiration, but in Grim's opinion, it was better to do other projects. When he left the dance floor, he glanced at Han Dong, who was dancing in sync. What was different from other dancers was that Han Dong not only danced in sync, but also fell into a state of complete immersion, his whole body floating in the air. His dance was more perfect than any other dancer. Your adaptability is really unparalleled. Moreover, no matter what kind of inspiration, you can transform it into your own thing, all-inclusive. This is very similar to Naya, or even better. It's really interesting. I'm looking forward to your mythical construction. He came to a dark wall full of holes. He put his arm into one of the holes, and after a short while, he pulled out a specially made cocktail and put it in an organ-style wine glass. Grim knew very well that Han Dong would stay on the dance floor for a long time. So he took the wine glass and went to the party's special compartment. As Grim was a VIP here, he could enjoy exclusive service. A waiter whose neck was completely cut open came out to receive him. The exposed throat was full of meat particles rubbing against each other and making a blurred sound. "How can I help you?" "Help me arrange an extreme banquet for 3 people. The cost will be deducted from my abyss points." Okay, for Grim. The peace party corresponding to the red square key was only equivalent to a rest area. There was not much that could stimulate him, whether it was gambling, wild dancing, or physical indulgence. It was not very interesting to him. Since Han Dong had drawn the safest party, he would let them get used to it first. Coupled with this extreme banquet, it could also prepare for the subsequent problems. "I don't know how long you can hold on for the first time, Han Dong. I hope you can show your crazy nature at the final moment, so that we can achieve a true sense of complementarity. Don't waste my good intentions. I believe you can do it." Consciousness coordination rate -99. 9% Kingdom of the Nagas. Volusia. Han Dong, who was dancing gracefully, entered an unprecedented state of fusion. Not only was he floating in the air, the black vortex on his abdomen was also slowly rotating. It was the formless domain that he had learned in the Chaos Cell. Coupled with Han Dong's high adaptability, he was able to assimilate completely in a very short time. He even unknowingly simulated himself as a Naga. At the end of the dance, an ancient voice that seemed to come from a deep valley reverberated in Han Dong's mind. "You are Warren Nicholas? I've heard of your name from the Bufo a long time ago, but I didn't expect you to be so special. Your mimicry seems to come from an important descendant of mine, Karen City. All right, you seem to be an associate professor at the University of Mishima. Are you too close?" Snake Father. When Han Dong opened his eyes, his body was hanging on the top floor of the ancient temple. Snake Father, who was holding a scepter, stood in front of him, but he didn't feel too oppressive. Han Dong's consciousness had been completely connected here because of the previous dance and had become an important member. "Yes, I worked with Professor Karen on a mission not long ago. As for the relationship, it's just an ordinary colleague. I don't have much interaction with Professor Karen except for missions. Maybe it's a subconscious imitation. Immersed in this dance that carries ancient words and Naga culture, I can't control the state of my brain at all. I just want to absorb as much knowledge as possible. That's a pity. Karen is an extremely special Naga with extremely high talent. She's somewhat similar to you. In the future, if you want to learn more about our kingdom, you can ask Karen to take you to the real Naga kingdom. I believe you can learn more interesting things from there." "Okay, but my schedule is very tight recently." This was an invitation from Snake Father himself, and the other party was only an atavistic body. If the matter of declining the invitation was spread out, it would inevitably cause an uproar. Hearing Han Dong's reply, Even Snake Father, who was having fun in the party, was unhappy. Han Dong could already feel that every piece of flesh in his body was wriggling, as if it would soon evolve into different kinds of poisonous snakes and nibble away at his body. Snake Father, please allow me to show you some scenes. Due to the high degree of integration of consciousness, Han Dong easily shared the images of the Black Tower and the things related to the Rampagers. I've heard some rumors from the University of Mishima recently. Is it so serious? If all of them are chaotic existences similar to the Great Impure, it's really difficult to deal with. The time is indeed very short. Is that all the information you have so far? More information can only be obtained when I become a mythical creature. That's why I can't guarantee that I will have time to go to your country, Snake Father. I have to guarantee that I will become a mythical creature within 4 years and go to the most unstable area in the Black Tower, the shelter, to check out the most detailed information. So that's how it is. It seems that you have become the core axis of this incident. In that case, I can't be stingy when I meet you here. I'll give you this thing. It can help you last longer in the Abyss Party and maintain a better state. I see that you're not far away from becoming a mythical creature. Try to break through the barrier here in one fell swoop. As soon as he finished speaking, something was moving in Snake Father's throat. A dark green stone with body fluid attached to it appeared on the surface of the tongue. When the hundreds of forked snake tongues delivered the stone to Han Dong's hand, the consciousness connection between the two was also broken. Buzz. The dance floor was already empty, and Snake Father seemed to have gone to the next party space. Only Sally kept waving on the outside of the dance floor. Nicholas, you're in a strange state. Snake Father's dance has already ended, but you continue to stay on the dance floor for more than an hour. What happened? Snake Father and I talked about some things and gave me this thing. When Han Dong stepped out of the dance floor, he showed the dark green stone that was still warm in his hand. Ah, Sally screamed directly. Fortunately, this was the Abyss Party, and this kind of scream was a very normal sound. There were all kinds of stimulating sounds of flesh colliding in the area next door, where the meat web was connected. Could this be the original snake gallbladder that Snake Father kept when he changed bodies? Rumor has it that as long as one takes such a snake gallbladder, even if the body is chopped into minced meat and the soul is completely crushed, it can be restored to its original state. No one knows the specific effects at all. A treasure like this will not leave the kingdom of the snake people. What did you do to make Snake Father give you such a treasure? I just chatted with him and then gave it to me. That's it. Chapter 1722. Grim seems to have disappeared. Isn't he with you? No, he isn't. When I woke up from the dance room, Grim was no longer there. Maybe this kind of snake dance was too different from the king's district he wanted to create, so he left in advance. After all, Grim is too special. This kind of enlightenment that seems to be helpful to all the Mantis demons is actually not very effective for him. I can't even feel his existence. Where'd he go? Han Dong touched the small hole in his shoulder. Maybe because of the Abyss Party's shielding effect, he still couldn't determine Grim's position. It didn't matter. Since Grim was temporarily absent, Han Dong chose his own entertainment. The black balloon in his hand revealed an extremely crazy smile, which meant that Han Dong had completely integrated into this party. His eyes swept across the swollen, distorted, joyful, and intense party hall. What should we play? Sally hurriedly tugged at Han Dong's sleeve and pointed at the special area that was separated by the meat net. Some of the private rooms in the area were not being used. Through the meat net, a large bed of pure meat could be vaguely seen. All kinds of common, uncommon, and even beyond understanding were integrated in the meat bed. They could play with it however they wanted. Do you have time? Just as Han Dong accepted Sally's suggestion and walked toward the meat net area, a very penetrating voice suddenly came. Nicholas, Sally, are you done? Hurry up and come over. The extreme feast is ready, just waiting for the two of you. Hurry up, this is a special item that I spent Abyss points to buy. Sally, who was immersed in the illusion, was instantly knocked back to reality. While she was feeling slightly dejected, she suddenly smelled a scent, a unique scent that caused her blood to surge and even her thoughts to be drawn away. It was like the first time she tasted breast milk in the Black Forest. It was like the unique taste that she tasted every time she made a breakthrough. Sally's desire was instantly suppressed, and she began to wonder what the extreme feast that Grimm mentioned was. Similarly, Han Dong also smelled this smell that he had never experienced before, and it almost brought his thoughts back to the world of his previous life. When the two of them stepped into the cubicle where Green was, the chaos stones intertwined with each other, completely blocking off the entrance behind them. Only VIPs who had paid a fee had the right to enter such a special area. The attendant, whose neck had been sliced open, was making a gesture to invite them to take a seat. The particles in the throat collided with each other and produced a strange sound. The extreme feast has been prepared for the three of you. Please take a seat quickly. Any delay will affect the freshness of the ingredients. The so-called armchair. It was a tongue chair that had been specially treated to keep the tongue fresh and was then made with the most advanced suturing technology. These tongues were taken from special fiend creatures that were proficient in swallowing and tasting. Every tongue was still active, and its taste buds were working normally. Once the individual was seated, the taste buds would perfectly fit the guest's body, effectively stimulating the taste buds. His appetite was greatly stimulated. The ability to absorb all kinds of food and taste would increase. It was an essential item for the extreme banquet. Splat, when he sat down on the soft, wet chair. The chair immediately shrank and perfectly adhered to the surface of the individual. It even kept licking Han Dong's special skin. Rumble, his stomach also made sound. Is it so effective? I suddenly feel like eating. It seems to be able to accept any type of food. Han Dong even glanced at Sally beside him, staring at the lamb leg and drooling. Soon, the first appetizer was presented. The waiters who walked through their arms began to serve the dishes. However, there was no dining table here, and there were no dishes in their hands. The waiter walked blindly to the corresponding diner. When he came in front of Han Dong, the waiter's lower body immediately grew a large number of tentacles to replace his arms to support himself. He slowly raised his empty arm. Whoosh! Sharp claws popped out from his fingertips. He didn't want to attack Han Dong and the others. Instead, he inserted his sharp claws into his own head and cut open his skull in a circular shape. In an instant, the rich aroma in the skull gushed out, and the tongue on the surface of the chair was slapping wildly, further stimulating Han Dong's appetite. The dish in the skull was still boiling, and the temperature was more than 1,000 degrees Celsius. Only such a temperature could make the special ingredient completely soft and delicious. Immediately after, the waiter began to control the energy in his body. Through his own skills, he absorbed the heat of the dish stewing in the skull, lowering the temperature of the dish to an edible range. At the same time, he politely said, "Honorable guest, please eat." Han Dong had long been unable to bear the hunger. He directly inserted his palm into the skull and started this extreme feast in the most primitive way. Moreover, when he customized the dish for Han Dong, he also considered the factor of human. The dish in front of him was called Buddha Jumps Over the Wall in the Skull. It was simply irresistible. Han Dong was sweating profusely as he ate, and every muscle in his body was trembling. He even completely exposed the nature of the hybrid demon, and a tentacle grew out of his mouth to suck the thick soup. Hiss, when Han Dong sucked the last drop of soup out of the bowl. The waiter also showed a satisfied smile, put his skull back, and crawled away. He was replaced by the next black goat descendant who was similar to Sally. This special female waiter came in front of Han Dong. Ta! An extra pair of goat hooves grew out of her spine, and her body fell backward. She supported herself with 4 legs so that her body was in front of Han Dong. It seemed that the next dish was her body. Han Dong originally thought that it was a more erotic way of eating, but who knew that when this black goat descendant took off her clothes, her body also started to crack. A vertical crack extended from her lower abdomen to her chest. Whoosh! When the body cracked open, the body cavity was exposed. A slightly musky aroma hit his face, and it was more impactful than the previous Buddha jumps over the wall. The steamed ribs could be easily removed, and it could be seen as hand-grabbed lamb chops. The soup at the lower abdomen was completely boiled, and it could be seen as mutton giblets hot pot. This black goat descendant had the characteristics of rebirth and reproductive organs, and she also had a strong masochistic tendency, so she took the initiative to apply for the job as a waiter here. While Han Dong was eating, she kept making all kinds of excited cries, and her body was slightly trembling. Just like that. An unimaginable extreme feast brought the strongest sensory impact and physical satisfaction to the three of them, and it laid a good foundation for the next trip to the abyss. When he finished eating the last dish, Bufang's expression changed. Han Dong directly collapsed on the chair, and he kept gasping for breath. Sally, who was not far away, had the same expression. She even stuck her tongue out, her eyes rolled up, and saliva kept dripping. Her mind had already flown into the world of taste. This is so good. Green, I owe you a favor. The Abyss Party is so high. Chapter 17:23. The Peace Party corresponding to the Red Square Key had certain restrictions. Unless special activities were carried out between the parties, such as gambling that consumed resources or dancing that consumed physical strength and spirit. Otherwise, after staying for a while, they had to carry out the next round of key draw and go deeper into the Abyss Party. After the end of the extreme banquet, except for Grimm, who recovered in a short time, Han Dong and Sally were paralyzed in chairs for a long time due to the sensory impact of the first experience. It was not that they could not break free, but that they did not want to break free. After all, such a rare opportunity was really too rare. By the time the sensory stimulation of the two disappeared one after another, a full 3 hours had passed. This is the charm of the Abyss Party, and the price of the extreme banquet is very high. Even I can only eat it a few times. It's almost time. It's time to go to the next party. Han Dong was already satisfied. Whether it was the enlightenment and gift of the Snake Father or the extreme banquet that had just ended, they all gave Han Dong an extreme sense of satisfaction. In his current state, no matter what kind of party he faced, he could deal with it with all his strength. Han Dong, who had completely integrated into the Abyss Party, couldn't wait to participate in other types of parties. When the three of them entered the extreme banquet room one after another, the key, with keys all over his body, appeared in the central area of the party. Only Han Dong and the other two participants who were timed up could see him. Nicholas, let's continue. Han Dong was still very willing to carry out the key lottery. After all, he had barely found the feeling of shaking hands in the previous lottery. He was groping for something in the black box space that was piled up with countless arms, relying on his intuition to grab one of the arms that felt completely different. When the two shook hands, the broken arm immediately evolved into the shape of a key. When the arm was in the black box, a dark blue key was in Han Dong's hand, and the gears were in the shape of irregular tentacles. When Grimm saw this scene, he came forward excitedly, grabbed Han Dong's palm, and held the key together. You're too lucky. The probability of drawing a blue key is very small, and this is a dark blue key. I'm afraid the actual probability of drawing is only 1%. Moreover, the teeth of the key also show an irregular type of chaos. Dark blue? Are there any different shades of color? Usually, there are very few differences in depth. Once it appeared, it meant that the degree would change. Blue represented the unknown house, and dark blue meant that the degree of unknown would deepen. Some deep unknown options might emerge. The danger index would also be greatly increased, and the interest level would also increase. I remember there was a time when the younger me and a group of low-level residents also drew the dark blue key, and there was a corresponding distortion party. A few arrogant fellows died in it. However, I was addicted to it, and it even widened the abyss in my body. I wonder what I'll get this time. Hearing Glenn's narration, Sally immediately became alert. Han Dong, on the other hand, had a smile on his face. He was even in a similar state of madness as Grim. Let's go. Anyone who comes to the Abyss party must be prepared. If you eliminate it or die, it's just your own problem. He held the black balloon in one hand. Holding the key in one hand, he walked at the front of the team. When he inserted the key into the colorful door at the end of the party, the sound of the lock turning instantly drowned out the noise of the party behind him. It was as if the scene of the previous party had been completely filtered out. As the colorful door slowly opened, the entire space was directly turned 90 degrees. They should have stepped through the door horizontally, but instead, they fell into it. The Abyss party was already at the bottom, but it still continued to fall. This is the first time I've seen such a situation. Interesting. What kind of party does this correspond to? Grim had no intention of stopping the fall at all. Instead, he accelerated downward, eager to know the specific situation of the next party. Seeing this, Han Dong and Sally had no choice but to follow. They swooped downward for about 10 minutes. Boom! Everyone landed steadily on a flat area filled with thick fog. Mr. Fog set up a barrier here, and it's not weaker than the density of the chaos cell outside. Not long after, the fog dispersed on its own, revealing the true scene of this unknown party. The first thing that came into view was a pillar standing in the middle of the venue. It was built by chaos stones in a specific multidimensional geometric pattern, and the different levels were corresponding to the rotation pattern, and waves of powerful energy were constantly released outwards. When the fog had completely dispersed, countless mantis demon skulls were piled up here, creating an ancient and long-standing party area. Its structure was somewhat similar to a battle arena or a council hall. The individuals standing on the outer viewing platform were wrapped in robes that flowed with chaos. Their necks were all cut open, and a huge and exaggerated eyeball was suspended above them. Their pupils were either moving points or different geometric shapes. They were even in a hollow state. At this moment, their eyes all fell on the three young men who had unexpectedly arrived. There was also a throne made of chaos stones standing on the main viewing platform, but no one was sitting on it, and it was in a vacant state. Looking at the throne, Han Dong immediately fell into a state of shock. Half a year ago, when he had just arrived at the center of chaos, he had seen a similar throne. Although the size was smaller, the shape and structure were exactly the same. Grim looked at the familiar abyssal pillar in the middle of the venue and whispered, "Oh, Nicholas, do you recognize it? This is a child throne, created by the essence of chaos according to Father's throne. Even I have come here for the first time. Rumor has it that Father set up the ancient council at the bottom of the abyss to evaluate some specific abyssal life forms, simulate and improve the structure of the crazy abyss, and so on. I didn't expect the Abyss party to be able to lead here. We seem to be in the council's creation hall. It's a pity that Father is not here, otherwise it would be more fun." At this time, one of the counselors spoke. "Congratulations to the 3 party participants who have been lucky enough to come to us for a special test party. Next, we need you to work together to help test a new abyssal life form that we have created. It is still in the initial stage of testing, and there is still many instability. I hope that through the confrontation between you, we can collect enough test data to perfect the subsequent creation of this new abyssal life form." When Grim heard this, his eyes widened. It seemed that Grim's birth had a certain relationship with this test. He also wanted to see if there would be an abyssal life form more perfect than him after so many years. Chapter 1724. Han Dong stared at the center of the scene, at the rotating chaos pillar. "Grim, could it be? Nicholas, your guess is right. My first stage model was researched and created by this group of people. These guys were recognized by my father and were arranged to be researchers in the Abyss Council. They were mainly responsible for combining the basic characteristics of the primordial chaos to carry out the first model construction. My body of the Abyss was proposed by one of the researchers in the early days. After thousands of years of testing, they obtained a first model that could barely be used in theory and handed it to my father to inject chaos. Is that so? Since it's based on a model, there should be other individuals similar to you. Grim? Grim shook his finger. Oh, there's no such thing. Indeed, in theory, as long as you follow the model, you can get countless of me. In fact, ever since my father got the first model, he has been injecting chaos. He had created hundreds of thousands, even millions of me. Unfortunately, most of them couldn't even achieve basic stability. Even if they were successful, they could only live for a few days and were swallowed by the uncontrollable abyss holes on the surface of their bodies. I was the only one who barely survived. My father also consumed a large amount of chaos origin in this process, and even went into hibernation for hundreds of years. The model used to create me should be the most complicated and the least stable. I wonder how the new model made by these guys will be like. This, Han Dong was very clear about Grimm's uniqueness, but he didn't expect the process of Grimm's birth to be so exaggerated. The Chaos Team, which symbolized the top of S01, spent thousands of years developing the model. Finally, it was handed over to the Supreme to inject chaos. Even so, the failure rate was still 1 in hundreds of thousands. Grimm's birth could even be seen as a miracle. Perhaps there was a problem with the model itself. It was impossible to get an individual like Grimm. It was only because of some absolute coincidence and opportunity that such a special existence was born. Han Dong continued. If that's the case, a large number of elites in the abyss of chaos, or Grimm, your brothers and sisters, were all obtained through the model, including the Tooth Emperor we saw at the entrance? That's right. Chaos can't give birth to life. The only existence that was truly born out of chaos was his father. In order to create an army that could crush all living beings and flatten the world, my old man came up with the idea of creating more primordial creatures of chaos in the form of a mold. So that's how it is. Chaos creation? Han Dong smelled a hint of scientific research. He locked onto the chaos stone pillar with 100% of his demonic eye and tried to engrave the multi-dimensional movement pattern on the surface of the stone pillar into his brain. Although it ended in failure. However, Han Dong was able to decipher part of the information about the stone pillar, as well as the basic principle of making the mold. The migration, transformation, and transformation of these different stones seems to represent a kind of life equation. The reason I could barely read it, this was because the life transformation was similar to Morgan's technology. Morgan used his super powerful Migo brain to create a mental model of the life he wanted to create. Then, with any biomass material as the foundation, it could rapidly create creatures. Although there were similarities, the Chaos Stone pillars involve a much deeper domain. At the very least, the Chaos Stone pillars' ability to process and transform chaos was something that I couldn't understand. It was probably a theoretical equation that these guys had obtained by analyzing the foundation of Grimm's father. It was even possible that it was the life equation that the Supreme Chaos had analyzed and analyzed. Only in this way could it be possible to create special life in the chaos that was contrary to life. How interesting. I don't know if I can use the doctor's brain to deconstruct the experimental subject in this test. If I can, I might be able to meet the requirements of this group of counselors in advance. I might even help them and provide them with relevant optimization plans. When it came to scientific research, Han Dong was naturally interested. At this moment, all the researchers standing on the side platform looked at the Chaos Stone pillar through the eyeballs floating on their necks. The integration of consciousness. They directly imported their thoughts into the stone pillar and activated the core equation. For a moment, the stones at different sections and levels of the stone pillar began to gradually move in parallel and synchronize their rotation speed. The entire body emitted a dark red luster, as if some kind of terrifying life was about to be created. Even at this moment, Grimm still had no intention of entering combat state. He maintained his arms open and felt the familiar feeling of the life equation. It was as if it reminded him of the moment when he was first created. Sally was the complete opposite. While she was falling, she had already entered combat state. Not only did she reveal a part of the Black Goat's original form, she also pulled out a piece of equipment that Han Dong had never seen before from her navel. A material similar to an umbilical cord was wrapped around her right arm. It looked like a long whip, but it was more like a special piece of equipment related to reproduction. As for Han Dong, who was hiding at the back, he maintained the posture of a faceless one. One of his hands had been inserted into the back of his head, as if he was fiddling with something in the prison world. An awkward expression could be vaguely seen between the smooth, braised eggs. When I came to the center of chaos, this truth demonic sword became extremely quiet and even took the initiative to retreat. I don't know if the effect will be greatly weakened when I use it later. Let's observe the strength of the enemy first. If Grim and Sally can fight head-on, they shouldn't be at a disadvantage, so there's no need to use the demonic sword. Just as Han Dong was thinking of this, buzz, a circle of consciousness spread out from the bottom of the stone pillar, including Grim. Due to the spread of the consciousness wave, all the individuals in the field were cut off for a moment. When their consciousness was restored, a strange eyeball was reflected in their minds. The eyeball was surrounded by flame-like tentacles, and as a whole, it looked like a distorted star. The pupil in the center was like a chaotic star that was filled with holes. It was slowly rotating. Except for Grim. Han Dong and Sally instinctively retreated. When they reopened their eyes, a chaotic creature was already standing beside the stone pillar. Its torso seemed to have a big hole gouged out, and the chaotic eyeball that had just appeared in everyone's minds was suspended in it. The main focus was on Grim. At the same time, there was also a wave of pressure. Han Dong was so scared that he immediately retrieved the truth demonic sword that was hidden deep in his mind back to reality. The scabbard of the tentacles was attached to his waist, ready to draw the sword at any time. What the hell? Directly to Regent level. Chapter 1725. Even though he had already revealed his king-level aura, even though the core eyeball of this life form was staring at the young man who was exuding the same chaotic aura as him, treating him as its primary target and analyzing the relevant body structure, Grim still did not have the slightest preparation state. Instead, all of his attention was locked on the other party's eyeball, and even showed an extremely greedy expression. This is the first time I've seen such a chaotic eyeball. It's exactly the same as a chaotic star. Has the technology of these guys improved again? He was actually able to completely simulate the star of chaos and present it in his eyes as a pupil. It seems that these guys who stay in the depths have some skills. They have created such an interesting mold. It's so fragrant. It would be great if such an eyeball could be embedded in my body. Grim was already starting to feel greedy. Among the 10 primes, his alone was not even in the top 3. Eugene's, I was recognized as the strongest among the primes. The second was Oslin's lost continent from the northern continent, Hippolylia, which was passed down from ancient times. It was called the heirloom pearl of Hippolylia. It was embedded in Oslin's soul and could grow together with the individual. The third was a little controversial. It was difficult to say who was more powerful between Pope's starry eyes and Helen's hidden eyes. Grim's Eye of the Abyss was not bad at all, but he was far from satisfied. He also longed for a very useful eye. This was also the reason why he borrowed Eugene's eyeball and immersed himself in it during the first game in London. But in the end, he did not take it by force, because that would be meaningless. After all, Eugene could still bring him some joy. In front of the Chaos Stone Pillar, an individual was created, in addition to the setting of the Eye of the Chaos suspended in the hollow body. This thing did not have a fixed form when it was born. It was a cluster of tightly woven chaotic tentacles. Each chaotic tentacle maintained a high degree of coordination with the eyeball. Grim, Han Dong, and Sally were the first type of life observed when it was born. It also very naturally imitated their posture, forming a torso and limbs. At this time, The researcher in the observation area, who was mainly responsible for mold design and production, gave a simple explanation. This primal chaos body that is still being tested is called the Eye of the Abyss. Currently, the reason why it can be stabilized to king level, lower level, is entirely because of the integrated consciousness of our many researchers and the chaos stone pillar that created it. Without any of these, it would not be able to exist independently. We hope that we can find the flaws in the mold through fighting with you. Once we meet the test requirements, we will voluntarily disintegrate. Of course, it would be best if you could defeat it head-on, considering that our integrated consciousness has set it as king level, lower level. We will give you 10 minutes to adapt. You can observe it through any non-contact means. There's no need for that. I'm in a hurry to head to the next party area. Let's begin, researchers. Just as Glenn threw out this sentence, Wong, the Eye of Chaos, suddenly changed direction. The focus of his eyes shifted from Grimm's body to the ground where Grimm was. Glenn, be careful. Han Dong noticed this detail and hurriedly gave a warning. Whoosh! Demon, who was originally dozens of meters away, was stunned. Without any time interval or changes in spatial processes, a kind of shift took place, directly appearing in the focal point of the vision, which was in front of Glenn. Glenn, who was not ready for battle, had no time to dodge or parry. At the same time, in the previous observation, the Eye of Chaos had completed the analysis of Glenn's body. A slap landed on the right side of Glenn's chest. Slap. Logically speaking, a direct attack from a king level should have directly shattered Glenn's body. However, when the slap landed, there was only a dull thud, and Glenn's body did not shatter. For a moment, Glenn's expression changed drastically, and he spat out a mouthful of turbid body fluid. At the same time, at the spot where he was hit, creak, creak, tentacles from demon were drilling into the depths of Glenn's body through the holes on the surface of his body. This abyssal hole could directly reach Glenn's body, the extremely important breeding area. Once it was invaded, Glenn's life would be in danger. As expected of a primal chaos body, has the observation completed the deconstruction of my body? This eye is amazing. Glenn sighed after saying this. Creak, creak. A black blade made of dense fingernails and a female's arm as the hilt drilled out from behind Glenn's back and hung above his head. Downward slash. During the slash, every fingernail that made up the blade could cut through space. The slash caused a lot of noise. The trajectory of the slash and the surrounding space were completely torn into thin strips, causing a strong spatial turbulence. However, the target of this slash was not the demon. It was Glenn himself. Glenn's body was completely torn apart, and some of the demon's tentacles that were drilling in his body were also torn apart. In the next second, the small hole in Han Dong's shoulder sensed something. An arm full of mucus stretched out, and the reborn Glenn crawled out at the fastest speed and grabbed the hilt of Miss Lyle's arm. It's really strong. All of its abilities are based on the eye. The chaotic tentacles that make up the body can exert 120% of its strength under the control of the eye. The pressure from a king level even made it difficult for my territory to open. It's been a long time since I've encountered something so interesting. I'll try to fight this thing head-on. You too can help me indirectly from a side. If you see that I'm about to be killed, just lend a little help. Okay. Han Dong agreed immediately, combined with the existing information to achieve the greatest victory as long as Glenn could hold on. Letting Han Dong watch the battle was the best choice. Sally gritted her teeth and whispered, Glenn, my territory should be able to help you recover and nurture the abyss. At the right time, I'll interfere with the vision of this eye. Sure, as long as you don't die. Okay. As soon as Sally finished her sentence, she turned around. A terrifying feeling of being stared at suddenly came. This time, the eye was no longer staring at Glenn, nor was it looking at the surrounding ground. Perhaps because of Glenn's strange manipulation, it caused its tentacles to be cut off, allowing the eye demon to change its combat style. It chose Sally, who was also exuding a mythical aura. Oh no, This guy is a parasitic type. Its attack on Glenn just now seemed to be destroying the abyss in his body, but in fact, it was planning to parasitize him. When Han Dong realized this, it was already too late. Spaceless transfer, there was no time to dodge, and Sally did not even have time to self-reproduce to avoid it. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Chaotic tentacles drilled directly into Sally's body, along with a large number of tentacles moving under the skin. Swoosh! Sally's chest and abdomen were torn open, forming a large round bloody hole. The chaotic eye that invaded her body was suspended in the center of the hole. Buzz! A circle of purple ripples spread out under her feet, and a king-level territory that merged with Sally's attributes instantly covered the surrounding area. Black trees that were constantly secreting mucus rose from the ground. At the same time, in the center of the tree trunk, a strange eye opened one after another. Fusion territory, Black Forest Eye. Chapter 1726. Parasitic type. Due to the beholder's regent aura that exceeded expectations, at the same time, according to the posture of Han Dong and others, it imitated human limbs and made effective attacks on Grimm. It was impossible to think that this thing was actually a parasitic individual. When Sally was occupied and the Black Forest's regent domain spread out, even Han Dong panicked for a moment. The battle plan that he had just thought of, Grimm's main attack, Sally's restraint, and himself watching, was instantly destroyed. Next, he would face a regent black goat with the Chaos Eye. And Han Dong had to worry about Sally's safety. Grimm would certainly not care about this problem. Even if Sally was killed together with him, he would not care. He would only attribute it to Sally's lack of strength. In an instant, several difficult problems were placed in front of Han Dong. Using spirit borrowing to forcibly enhance my ability with perfect coordination with Grimm, I should be able to confront this guy head-on and even suppress it and find an opportunity. But spirit borrowing to a large extent depends on luck. It is extremely unstable. Incarnations like the Black Pharaoh are powerful, but they will implant the corresponding pharaoh's will and memories into my brain, seriously affecting my judgment. I may not care about Sally's safety for the sake of pure benefits and kill it as soon as possible. It may even be possible to randomly obtain an incarnation of relatively low quality that is restrained by the beholder or the black goat. As long as it is a highly random ability like spirit borrowing, there is a risk. The optimal solution cannot be guaranteed. There is only one way to achieve the optimal solution. Han Dong took a deep breath and made a decision. At the same time, he whispered, "Doctor, help me with all your strength." A pink tentacle grew from the top of the egg's head. A white coat was draped over Han Dong's body, naturally formed by human mimicry. The scientific research posture combined with the doctor's brain, with the human appearance as the best. This was also something that Han Dong brought from his previous world. At this time, Han Dong noticed the doctor's strange state. Doctor, are you about a breakthrough? My lord, the spiritual type mythical Shane from the Sanctuary of Heroes has been assimilated and absorbed by my brain. With Senior Morgan's legacy, my mythical puzzle has been completed. All you need to do is fill in the gaps between the puzzle pieces and pierce through the thin film in front of you. Then, you can break through the final boundary. Han Dong was shocked and quickly responded. Not bad at all. There was only one thing that the doctor needed to do. Just like the previous battle against Bob, you only need to think. Using Professor Morgan's legacy to analyze the life equation between the Chaos Stone pillars, he did not need to completely understand the operating principle of the equation. It was enough as long as he could effectively intervene. He had to be quick. This concerns Miss Sally's life. I understand. I will not disappoint the Lord. The doctor was also worried about Sally's situation. When they were in London, Sally had taken over Han Dong's management rights. As the mistress of the manor, she had managed it for a long time. During that time, she had some interactions with Dr. Swollen. For a moment, the pink tentacles hanging on Han Dong's head began to wriggle. Between the skulls, the doctor's brain, which was originally in a state of attachment, began to peel off. They separated into many thumb-sized subbrains and connected to each other through a nerve tentacle. They circled around Han Dong's brain like planets. Parallel fusion. This was the highly efficient way of brain cooperation that the doctor had analyzed through optimization. Each subbrain had enough computing power to modularize the problems that required computation and thinking, and distribute them to different subbrains for parallel computation. Then, with the help of Han Dong's Cortex Prime, data feedback and transmission that did not take up much of the memory. The efficiency would be much higher than the previous brain fusion. Even so, the doctor still had a heavy task in front of him. Even if he could effectively cut in through the life creation between the legacies, the complexity of analyzing the life equation related to chaos would surpass any calculations that the doctor had done before. As long as I can understand the operating mode of the equation, I can intervene. I must save Miss Sally from the parasitic state. The king-level domain, the black-eyed forest, had been completed. Even Grimm's abyss domain was suppressed to within 5 meters. The eyes that grew on different trunks were locked on the two in all directions, trying to analyze all the body information, movement structure, and potential weaknesses. However, when these eyes looked to Han Dong, they would encounter a very strange obstruction. Although this interference could not offset the Chaos Eye's observation, it could always disrupt the vision at critical moments. When the Chaos Eye wanted to spy on Han Dong, it would always be disturbed by a kind of black vortex. For example, when it wanted to observe the arm structure through Han Dong's skin, a black vortex would suddenly appear and distort the vision. Moreover, if it continued to pry forcefully, the distortion effect would continue to intensify, seriously increasing the eye's fatigue. Such observation also made the eye devil, or, to be precise, the integrated consciousness of the council began to be curious about Han Dong. Even this group of abyssal researchers who had been studying all kinds of life forms at the bottom of the abyss for hundreds, thousands, and tens of thousands of years to create molds could not understand how an atavistic body could interfere with the eye devil's observation. The integrated consciousness was centered by a main researcher and was currently conveying combat information to other consciousnesses. This young man should be a special existence that specializes in the mind type. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to participate in the Abyss Party with atavism alone. It would be a pity to kill such a talent. Let's start with this person first and incapacitate him. Finally, we'll suppress this crazy demon to ensure the lowest degree of damage. Yes. Suddenly, the secret method was activated. The Chaos Eye in Sally's body, drops of turbid liquid similar to blood flowed out. At the same time, the black trees around Grimm also flowed out a substance similar to blood from their eyes. Some kind of forbidden eye technique was instantly activated, directly affecting Grimm's body without any process. Eye sorcery, endless abyss prison buzz. From Grimm's perspective, the ground collapsed, and he was forced to fall into an unknown abyss that had no bottom at all. From the perspective of a bystander, Grimm was instantly swept into the black spot formed by the eye technique and disappeared. This scene scared Han Dong so much that he broke out in cold sweat. This was too scary. Of course, such an unreasonable eye technique naturally came at a certain price. The Chaos Eye temporarily could not use eye techniques, and the visual effect was greatly weakened. From the point of view of the researchers, they were currently in the state of controlling the king-level black goat. Even if the eye was weakened, they could still easily suppress the atavistic body. The moment the eye technique ended, Sally rushed forward at extreme speed. When the sound of the goat's hooves was heard, the chaotic larvae that resembled lambs also bred under Han Dong's feet, restricting his movement. Whoosh! Sally drew a phantom and rushed straight toward Han Dong. She aimed and locked on to his torso, intending to crush all of his limbs except for his head to achieve the effect of restricting his movement. Just as she was about to hit, buzz. What she hit was only a few bright stars. Han Dong's body had disappeared. Only the lambs that died of old age and a circle of extremely complete void array were left on the ground. He's proficient in void techniques. Who is this kid? Chapter 17:27. He had the experience of fighting against an existence like the Emperor's Slayer. Coupled with the increase in level, comprehension, and actual combat experience since the London game, Han Dong was more calm when facing the king. That was all. Han Dong could not surpass such a level gap. Moreover, other than the doctor, he did not have any powerful helpers. Cao was also in the important stage of comprehending the demonic book and could not help. Once the time was dragged on, he would definitely lose. I can only use the void method a few times. Energy consumption is an important problem. Moreover, as the number of times I use it increases, this kind of perceptive opponent will become more and more accustomed to it. They might even directly use the king-level domain to interfere with the void and locate my teleportation exit in advance. I have to think of other ways to stall for time. Cold sweat slid down Han Dong's cheeks. He did not expect that just a short while after the start of the battle, it would turn into an extremely disadvantageous situation for him. Sally was parasitized, and Green was sealed. However, even so, Han Dong still did not urge him. He did not even disturb the doctor, who was doing super calculations in any way. Let's give it a try. How long can I last with the current me? Domain expansion. He did not hold back. Han Dong could only give it his all. 2 fingers outlined an extremely crazy smile on his face. He tried to use his best crazy laughter domain to fight for his own area in the king-level domain. Then, he used fatal jokes to destroy the surrounding black trees. Ha ha! Ah! Just as Han Dong covered his face and laughed, the black balloons tied to his wrist also laughed. Not only that, the black balloons actually began to replicate themselves under the nourishment of the laughter, and the number doubled. For a moment, Han Dong looked like a clown vendor selling balloons in a forest park. It was quite strange. Ha ha! The ultimate crazy laughter spread in the forest. The plant roots that were spreading, breeding, and reproducing under his feet were quickly invaded and destroyed by the crazy laughter virus, creating a safe area about 5 meters wide for Han Dong. Not only that, the black balloons in his hand increased in number. They began to break out of Han Dong's palm and float in all directions. When the balloon with the strange, smiley face came into contact with the tree, pop! The balloon exploded and an extremely deadly substance of death poured out. Although it couldn't corrode the tree, it could effectively destroy the eyes on the tree trunk. In this way, Han Dong's vision was sealed. This was not the effect of the realm of mad laughter, but the special effect of death given by dark magic. The black stains on the surface of the tree trunk were the best proof. Even Han Dong, who was expanding his domain, was equally shocked. What's with this feeling? Why would the effect of death be mixed into the domain of the mad laughter? Or rather, the 2 domains were merging? Subjectively, I only activated insane laughter, but in reality, wait, subjective. Could it be that the formless that I've comprehended can help me achieve a better release of my abilities under non-subjective control? Unconsciously, I perfectly fused the 2 mythical level domains that I currently have. Putting Faceless Myth at the end was indeed the best choice. Perhaps when I complete the Faceless Jigsaw puzzle, the 3 Daos that I walk will be integrated into one under the influence of Formless. At the thought of this, Han Dong could not help but laugh out loud. The excitement that came from the bottom of his heart doubled the effect of his crazy laughter. The extremely penetrating laughter echoed in the forest and even spread to the observation area. The researchers who were maintaining the integrated consciousness were also affected by the mad laughter. They had never seen such a crazy attribute and couldn't find a way to resist it. This caused the wave of consciousness to be blocked. About 8% of the researchers couldn't connect to the integrated consciousness, and 21% of the connections were blocked. This directly led to a very serious problem. The Eye Devil of Chaos, who was in the testing stage, was suddenly weakened due to the control. Some unstable and even out-of-control situations were instantly exposed. Sally's posture also became distorted. First, for extra sheep hooves grew out of her lower body. She no longer ran on 2 legs, but all the sheep hooves were twisted together in a twisted way. Small, slippery, tentacles grew out from the bottom of the sheep hooves. She combined the three movement methods of crawling, stepping, and sliding. The speed didn't change, but the movement trajectory became difficult to capture. Sometimes she twisted, sometimes she slanted, and sometimes she crawled and slid. It was very strange. Sally's body would also sway back and forth like a roly-poly toy when she moved in this manner. Her swaying black hair almost covered her face. Her arms twisted wantonly in a posture that ordinary people couldn't do. At the same time, strange eyes also grew out of her cheeks, shoulder sockets, back, and wrists, which meant that she was out of control and the degree of parasitism had deepened. If she went deeper, even if the researchers worked together, it would be difficult to separate Sally. This is... Han Dong's eyes became ugly when he spied on the black goat that was twisting forward. There's not much time left. If this goes on, Sally will really die here. Phew, calm down. I have to find the right opportunity. Han Dong took a deep breath. The balloons in his hand were all released. Thousands of black balloons enveloped Han Dong in the middle of them. The dead air and laughter emitted by the balloons were also very good at covering the breath. For a moment, the eye demon completely lost its target of Han Dong, but it had no intention of stopping to observe. A king-level pressure was accumulating in its lower body. It fully relied on the black goat's characteristics. It raised the goat's hooves that were twisted together and stomped down heavily. Heavy crush. It was as if there was 100-meter level goat's hoof crushing the spot where Han Dong was. Thousands of balloons burst in an instant. The trees in the range of the crush were also instantly turned into dust. Several cracks appeared on the floor of the parliament. However, the Chaos Stone had the ability to repair itself and quickly absorb the chaos in the abyss to repair the cracks. This scene gave the researchers fright. Their original intention was not to kill Han Dong, a talent. However, such a crush just now was very likely to crush Han Dong's body and soul together. An emergency discussion immediately took place in the integrated consciousness. The test subject's loss of control index is increasing. If this continues, it may completely escape control. Supervisor, do we need to activate the force termination ritual? Wait, now is the best time to obtain test data. Moreover, this young man doesn't seem to be dead yet. The mental madness that interferes with our consciousness connection hasn't disappeared. On the field, the eye of chaos floating between Sally's body was scanning the flattened area, carefully searching for the remains of Han Dong's body. It was free of control to a certain extent, and negative emotions were accumulating between the eyeballs. It wanted to confirm one thing, which was that the young man who let out the disgusting laughter and could even prevent it from observing through the black vortex had been crushed to death. Just as it was concentrating on scanning the corpse, Buzz, a starry sky shone behind it. Han Dong, with a white coat on his body and a scarlet smile smeared on his face, stepped out of the void quietly. Such a smooth void step was mainly due to the brief history of the void that Pope guided Han Dong to read, as well as the perfect fit brought by the phaseless domain's self-adaptation. This step did not cause any fluctuations. The truth demon, sword in his hand, was completely unsheathed. Chapter 1728. Opportunity. Due to the previous blockade on Grimm, the side effect had yet to disappear, and her visual ability was greatly reduced. A large part of her attention was focused on the crushing area of the sheep's hooves. This was an excellent opportunity for Han Dong. His gaze was locked onto the chaos eye in the center of Sally's body. He stabbed out with his sword, just as the tip of the sword was within 10 centimeters of her. Buzz, a hexagonal chaos barrier that was similar to ultra-thin glass, was instantly formed, and there were as many as 10 layers. It was a self-contained defensive measure. After all the chaos, I had always been displayed in a very intuitive way. It must have a fairly reliable defense mechanism. Otherwise, if it encountered some long-range enemies, it could be killed in one shot from a very long distance. Any attack that approached the eyeball, whether there was a process or not, would activate this layer of truth barrier called the abyss prism. Even if it was an attack that directly affected the eyeball, the damage would be transferred and borne by the prism. To break through, one must have king-level destructive power. For example, a slash at the level of Emperor Slayer. This kid can never penetrate the eye prism, and such an action will anger the eye demon, and he will die without a doubt. Supervisor, I suggest that we use equations to restrict the eye demon and temporarily stop this battle. Wait until we re-establish the integrated consciousness and retest. At most, we'll give them more rewards. Wait for my instructions. The supervisor also had the same plan. The stone pillar in the middle of the field had begun to slowly rotate. However, what happened next stunned all the researchers in the stands. Bang, bang, bang. The prism that blocked the front of chaos did not block the attack. It was breaking one after another at an extremely fast speed, and each layer could only block for less than 0.1 seconds. The demon sword in Han Dong's hand was completely unreasonable, ignoring any truth and rules. Once it touched the prism, some kind of antimatter that violated the truth would disturb the basic structure of the prism and break it apart. What kind of weapon is this? The researchers were all attracted by the flowing demon sword in Han Dong's hand and did not stop the battle for the time being. Similarly, the Chaos Eye also felt a fatal danger and erupted with a strong will to survive. Although the demon sword could quickly break through the prism barrier, there was still a time gap, when there was only one layer left. Swish, swish. Several chaotic tentacles grew out of the eye sockets and tightly restrained Han Dong's body. The suppression brought by the king-level tentacles made Han Dong unable to move at all. Sally turned around at the same time. Her slender arm suddenly stretched out and grabbed Han Dong's neck. Whoosh! Blood and flesh flew everywhere. At the same time, her sharp nails pierced through his neck. Coupled with the enormous force exerted by his palm, one could clearly hear the sound of the neck being crushed. Not only that, incredibly penetrating tentacles grew out of the fingers that had pierced into his neck, and they were crawling toward Han Dong's head. It was incredibly dangerous. Han Dong had already planned to let the doctor stop calculating and use spirit borrowing to break the dangerous situation in front of him. Waves of gray aura appeared around Han Dong's head, and the soul borrowing ritual was quickly being constructed. At the critical moment, a voice came from Han Dong's body. Don't worry, I'm coming. It was a dark-colored arm covered with vortex holes. It suddenly stretched out from the small hole in Han Dong's shoulder socket and pinched Sally's arm heavily. A very strange force was suddenly exerted. Swish! Sally's arm was uprooted and sucked into the hole in the palm, turning into food. For a moment, the nails and tentacles that were inserted into Han Dong's neck were also immediately deactivated and easily removed. The danger was thus eliminated. The doctor still maintained his efficient calculation and was not disrupted by the dangerous situation just now. Grim, Han Dong seized such an opportunity. He controlled the demon's sword with his consciousness and continued to pierce. Bang! The last layer of the prism was pierced. When the truth demon's sword stabbed the surface of the eyeball, a circle of anti-life black patterns instantly spread out. An overclocked scream came from the eye and echoed in the council area. The sheep trampled. Boom! It affected Han Dong and the surrounding area. The demon's sword was sent flying and stabbed into the ground dozens of meters away. The trees where it was stabbed were directly hit by the dimensional reduction and sucked into the singularity on the surface of the sword. Using the reaction force generated by the heavy trampling, Sally, who was being controlled, successfully pulled a distance away. However, the intense pain caused the eyeball to shake in Sally's body. The surface of the eyeball had an irreparable crack, and its related abilities were severely affected. On the other side, the area that was being trampled did not have any traces of the sheep's hooves. Grim, who had changed into a new body, supported his almost broken arms in the air and endured the heavy trampling just now. Nicholas, I'm sorry to let you face a region alone. This guy is really something. He actually used the abyssal secret arts to trap me for such a long time. I'm really embarrassed. Grim, this body of yours. In front of him, Grim's image changed. The texture of his skin was between leather and rock layers, and there were chaotic, turbid colors flowing in between. The holes all over his body had a vortex structure. Compared to the previous holes, they were more like the abyss, and their attributes had changed. They had more abnormal twisting and adsorption abilities. I've only forged this body recently. It's all thanks to the insights given to me by the Ladybug game and the rewards after the event, as well as the crazy supplements I got from you, Han Dong. It was also at this moment. Sizzle. A large amount of steam leaked out from Han Dong's scalp. The supercalculation that took place in his brain had been completed. Han Dong finally heard the voice that he had been waiting for. The doctor was ready. Grim, I have a favor to ask of you. Han Dong had already explained the next battle plan in the form of consciousness transmission. Whoosh! While the Abyss Beholder was still in pain. Stars flashed. Grim's original body drilled out from the void and directly displayed his strongest form to fight the injured Beholder head-on. Chaotic tentacles were pulled out alive by Grim and absorbed into the Abyss Beholder's body to be converted into his own energy. But the opponent was a regent. Even if the eyeball was injured, it continued to release its regent aura. At the same time, the Beholder borrowed Sally's fertility characteristics, and the nutrients from the surrounding areas were continuously delivered to it, multiplying wildly. Hundreds and thousands of chaotic tentacles grew out from Sally's body cavity, 7 orifices, and even special areas. Grim's tearing and absorption speed could not keep up with the reproduction of the tentacles. Even with Miss Lyle's help, it was difficult to cut off all the tentacles. Gradually, the tentacles wrapped around her body and formed a binding. At this moment, a hole in Grim's chest suddenly enlarged and a young man in a white coat drilled out. It was Han Dong who was hiding in Grim's body. It was caught off guard. Slap! Han Dong directly pinched the eyeball. Doctor, in a split second, an energy that could reverse the life equation was injected into it. As if a program had been shut down, even the parasitic state had been removed. Han Dong's right arm was filled with strength and pulled outward. The chaotic tentacles that were connected to Sally's body were pulled out together with the chaos eye by Han Dong. Chapter 1729. Really? Is he really that loyal? Nicholas. Along with the effective interruption of the life equation, the chaos tentacles that wrapped around Grim's body also became weak and loosened on their own. From Grim's expression, it was obvious that he was not completely satisfied. In fact, in the final battle with the Beholder, Grim did not use his full strength. Instead, he followed Han Dong's strategy and engaged in a stalemate with the Beholder in close combat. In this way, he attracted the Beholder's attention to the greatest extent so that Han Dong could get the opportunity to touch it at close range. If he used the real abyssal energy, Grim was confident that he could kill this severely injured and inexperienced king. Of course, as the host, Sally would also be killed. Not bad. After all, Sally is still very useful. It's not worth it to just die here. That's strange. Why am I worried about this? Just as Grim was strolling in the forest, cleaning up his injuries, Han Dong had sent the stop state of the chaos eye back to the stone pillar. The moment it came into contact with the stone pillar, the eyeballs immediately turned into streaks of red stripes and were retracted into the mold in its most primitive state. Han Dong completely ignored the shocked looks of the researchers and rushed to Sally's side to check on her injuries. The horrifying hole in her abdomen area caused by the parasitism had not healed, and there was still a stream of liquid flowing out. Her vitality is slowly fading away. Is Sally's reproductive ability unable to heal herself? It's no wonder. The chaos, I was originally a king level. Sally's body was under the forced burden of the mythical body, and her body was suffering from the burden every minute and every second. Later, due to the impact of the loss of control and the deep fusion with the Beholder, the burden increased. Grim's attack also caused a certain accumulation of injuries, and when I finally pulled out the Beholder, The tentacles that took root in her body almost completely destroyed Sally's body. Thinking of this, Han Dong suddenly became furious, and his voice spread throughout the council area. "You bunch of researchers, what are you still looking at? We are seriously trying to get the test data for you and meet the requirements. Now that our people are injured, come and help." Even Grimm was shocked by Han Dong's anger. He rarely saw Han Dong so angry. Even if they were in danger, Han Dong would usually only give rational analysis and plans. However, as Glenn stared at Han Dong, who was seething with anger, he felt that Han Dong was rather cute. Similarly, he immediately connected to the collective consciousness of the researchers through abyssal senses and spoke softly as a child of the abyss. "Didn't you hear what Nicholas said? Why are you still standing there? If Sally can't be saved, I might be very unhappy and kill some of you at random." Immediately, more than 10 researchers rushed over as fast as they could. They surrounded the heavily injured Sally. Using the large eyes floating on their necks, they drew a chaotic array formation that could nurture vitality on the ground around them. They were the designers and creators of the chaotic life forms. By drawing a simple life equation, the chaotic energy of the abyss was injected into Sally's body in a form of regeneration. His injuries were being healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. It even increased Sally's acceptance of chaos, and the new emblem imprinted on her abdomen became deeper and more vivid. One should know that what Sally was currently enjoying could be considered one of the highest treatment in the center of chaos. This group of researchers were all talents carefully selected by the Most High. Each of them was a powerhouse who could shake a region. It seemed to be repairing her body, but in fact, it would also increase Sally's synchronization rate with chaos. It was also during Sally's repair. A voice was transmitted to Han Dong alone. "Nicholas, this should be your name. That's what Glenn called you just now. I'm very happy to meet a talent like you. My name is Silvio I. Poliven. I'm the main holder of the life equation and one of the owners of the stone pillars. The Eye of Chaos that you dealt with was designed by me. Thank you for providing the best test results. Now that your friend's condition is stabilizing, I have something to talk to you about." Seeing that Sally had benefited from a disaster, Han Dong's expression returned to normal. He turned his head to look at the researcher closest to the throne in the observation area. There was a faint king-level pressure under his hood. In terms of strength, this researcher was far stronger than the test body formed by the mold and integrated consciousness. To be exact, it was precisely because he was controlling as the main consciousness that this test body formed by the mold could directly reach the king level. "Senior, what do you want to talk about? How did you complete the analysis of the life equation in such a short time? Compared to the mysterious demonic sword you hold and the strength you show as an atavistic body, this is something I absolutely can't understand. You seem to have spied on the secrets of the equation hidden in the stone pillars from the beginning. It can't be called an analysis. I can only say that I roughly understand the concept of your creation of life and have insight into the existence of the equation. Before the battle began, I was analyzing the operation mechanism of the equation, trying to find a way to effectively block and reverse the process. I shouldn't be able to completely analyze this kind of origin equation taken from the Lord of Chaos, but I can still interfere. The reason why I could notice the secrets of the equation hidden in the stone pillars was mainly because a subordinate in my head also specialized in the field of biological manufacturing. After saying that, Han Dong directly released the swollen doctor. Even though it had been a while, the doctor's brain was still emitting white gas, and the brain's high-load operation had not completely stopped. This, the researcher couldn't understand. Even they would have to spend months or years to learn the life equation, which was derived from the Most High. Now, an external tester could actually achieve interference with the equation in a few minutes. Han Dong saw that the other party was falling into the trap, so he continued, "The doctor has other unique insights in the field of life creation, and its mechanism is somewhat similar to your life equation." At the same time, Han Dong reached out and patted the doctor's shoulder. "Doctor, show them what you've got." "Yes." The doctor casually picked up a black goat tentacle scattered on the ground. as the brain produced a unique life trait and injected it into the tentacle. The most primitive cells in the tentacle were activated and began to undergo directional and efficient differentiation. Finally, a black goat offspring with an abnormally developed brain tissue fell on the ground, and at the same time, it grew a pair of bat wings. Seeing this scene, the researcher was completely tempted. Can you let this doctor stay with us for a while? In return, I'm willing to pay a temporary retainer of considerable value. Of course, the test fee, just now, which is the party reward, will be settled as normal. Sure. However, we have to sign a temporary employment contract. When I leave the center of chaos, I have to take the doctor with me. He's my confidant. With that, Han Dong rubbed the doctor's brain again. In this way, the other party would be completely trapped. He could take this opportunity to let the doctor work in the most high-end chaos creation team for a period of time. Not only could he learn relevant knowledge, but he could also find an opportunity to complete the final mythical structure. Chapter 17:30. Doctor, I will give you some more time. Take this opportunity to break through the mythical realm and then get some chaos theory back. Even if you can't copy the equation of life or the related chaos technology is restricted by the rules, you could try your best to fight for or transform some technology to bring out. Lord, don't worry, I think so too. I will try my best to get the chaos technology here at all costs. Even if some core technology is blocked by the rules, I will try my best to transform it into my own things. This was simply too exciting. Thank you, Lord, for giving me such an opportunity. It would be a pity not to seize such a good opportunity in front of you. Currently, these guys are bound to be affected by the madness. You have to restrain yourself as much as possible during your cooperation with them. When sharing related research results with this group of people, you must be reserved. Under appropriate circumstances, let them taste a little sweetness. Don't share all the technology you have mastered. Okay, just like that. Han Dong signed a sole agreement with the other party on the spot. With Green as a witness, he ensured that the doctor was only temporarily loaned out. During this period, he could not change or affect the doctor's subjective consciousness by any means. When the doctor was taken away, it was up to Han Dong, the master, to decide. After rubbing the doctor's head, Han Dong made a reluctant expression and sent him out. Phew, it's a close call. Although this kind of chaos has the pressure of a king, it's still not comparable to a real king. It's still much less than the pressure of Emperor Slayer. In the end, it was thanks to the Migo inheritance that Professor Morgan gave to the doctor that he was able to win in such a way. Although it wasn't easy to fight for the opportunity for the doctor, I have one less general in my hands. If the Abyss Party encounters similar strong enemies in the future, I can only deal with them through other means. Not long after, Sally's injuries were completely repaired. When her eyes slowly opened, a touch of chaos flashed through her pupils. Sally, who knew that she had caused trouble and was seriously dragging down the party, could only lower her head and not say a word. She didn't even dare to look at Han Dong. Unexpectedly, a palm gently landed on her shoulder, and a penetrating voice went straight to her brain. No one could have guessed that I was actually a parasitic. If you weren't here, I would be the one being parasitized. Tears welled up in Sally's eyes as she said in a low voice, "If I can complete IVF faster and transfer my consciousness to the fetus before the parasitism, I can avoid being parasitized. It happened so suddenly. I'll have more experience in the future." While Han Dong was comforting her, on the observation platform, the research director, who had already met Dr. Swollen, had a friendly smile in his big eyes. "Thank you, everyone, for completing the Mold Chaos Eye test. Furthermore, the final test results exceeded our expectations. According to the test data collected, the time to complete the final mold will be greatly reduced. As part of the Abyss Party, this special item will be your party reward." After that, a small object floated out of the supervisor's eyes as if it was floating on the surface of water. It was a spherical object wrapped in flowing chaos, about the size of a thumb. The substance floated in the middle of Han Dong's group, floating motionlessly in the air. When the flowing substance dissipated, a stone eye carved from stone with a bumpy surface appeared in front of them. On the surface of the stone eye, there would occasionally be some miniature chaotic tentacles that would drill out to achieve anti-gravity and self-protection. This is the first product I designed for the Chaos Eye. I didn't save any materials, but because it can't become an independent entity, it can only be used as a reference for the design of the mold. In terms of value, this thing belongs to the legendary living treasure. You can choose to combine it with your eyes, or make it into a pendant and use it as a scouting treasure. What S up legendary? Perhaps it was because of the perfect performance of Han Dong and the others. Perhaps it was because of the high-quality reward corresponding to the Abyss Party, Deep Blue. Or perhaps it was because this person was happy because of the appearance of Dr. Swollen, or he wanted to use this opportunity to give the child of the Abyss a treasure. He actually took out such a legendary equipment directly. The rumor that someone had obtained a treasure in the Abyss Party was true. Han Dong didn't have any greed. Sally didn't make any contributions. She just kept shaking her head. Grim, you take it. Although this thing may be useful to me. When I construct a myth, I'll be qualified to read the book of necromancy. By then, my little magic eye will have fully evolved. This thing may not be compatible with the book of necromancy, and it may become an obstacle to my cultivation. Several tongues stuck out from the small holes on Grim's face, licking around his lips. Not bad. I've recently been in need of a better eye. Grim grabbed the stone eye. He didn't directly stuff it into the eye socket. Instead, he threw the stone eye into the abyss in the middle of the eyeball for a deeper analysis. If it was really suitable, he would use it. At the same time, Han Dong stretched out his hand and waved. The demonic sword that was inserted not far away also flew back into his hand. It was immediately wrapped by a mimicry of tentacles and put back into the body. Seeing this scene, the supervisor still couldn't suppress the curiosity in his heart. After all, Han Dong could easily break the edge of the eyeball because of this unknown weapon. It was impossible to see the nature of the demonic sword through external observation. Mr. Nicholas, what is this weapon? I admit that during my research, I've seen all kinds of materials, but for the weapon in your hand, I can't even distinguish the most basic structure and material. It's a special equipment from the Destiny realm. Even I haven't really figured it out. I'm still in the adaptation stage. It's probably related to the Lost World. Han Dong didn't reveal too much. A demonic sword that could ignore the truth was too abnormal. If the demonic sword's ability to absorb the anti-life nature of the shattered dimensions was revealed, it might even arouse the greed of these people. I look forward to a talent like you staying in the abyss for a long time. I hope we'll have a chance to have in-depth exchanges in the future. That was it. The second party came to an end. When the researchers left, the key holder with a body full of keys appeared again. As the first two draw results were very good, Han Dong was still the one to draw. Since he could get such a reward in the unknown house, Han Dong also wanted to come a few more times. He reached out and searched among the black boxes that were full of arms. Intuition and a sense of familiarity made Han Dong grab an arm that had a similar feeling and pull it out without any hesitation. Blue square key. Its color was lighter compared to the second dark blue key. Oh, a normal blue key, and it's a peaceful one. Maybe it'll correspond to a rather surprising and interesting party. Let's go. Let's continue to party. Chapter 1731. The first party was a double gift from Snake Father, as well as Grimm's treat. Although the second party was somewhat dangerous, they obtained legendary equipment, and Han Dong even fought for a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Doctor in this way. The Abyss Party was simply a place of opportunity. As long as they could withstand it, they would be able to harvest all the way. Grim, can we go to the Abyss Party more than once? For example, if we quit halfway or are eliminated, can we go through another month of fall to the lowest level to participate in the party? Grim shook his finger. No. There are too many people who have this idea. The Abyss Party's entrance restrictions are still relatively strict. For individuals who leave the party normally, The cooldown period is 5 years. If they are forced to leave, such as being eliminated or taking the initiative to escape, the cooldown period will double. I also consider that you would come here, Nicholas, so after leaving the Abyss party 7 years ago, I have been holding back. Originally, I could have enjoyed the Abyss party immediately after the London game. 5 years? It seems that I have to cherish this opportunity. According to the time schedule of the Black Tower, Han Dong would not be able to make it in time for the next party. Next, using the reasonable stagnation period stipulated by the party, everyone stayed in the council area for an hour to let Sally, who had just recovered, adjust her state. Han Dong and Grim, who had just experienced a big battle, also needed to rest. Let's go. When the key that symbolized peace and the unknown was inserted into the keyhole. Whoosh! At the same time, the heads of the 3 people were covered with a linen bag with a strong sealing effect. Their perception was also sealed together with the linen bag. This is, Han Dong did not make any fierce resistance. Grim's voice immediately came from the small hole on his shoulder. Nicholas, we are about to enter an unknown party with the theme of peace. It can be considered a standard and trance ceremony. According to experience, we should be taken to a very interesting party gathering point. Creak, creak, creak. It was like an old metal wheelchair was rolling over. The wheelchair hit the 3 people from behind. Han Dong and the others sat on it and headed to a specific area. In less than 2 minutes, the wheelchair stopped in front of a round table. The linen bag continued to cover their heads. A voice similar to the rules of a guide was heard. Welcome to the I'm Very Fast Ultimate Speed Party. That's right. Here, we will compete on the speed of each team in different situations. The 3 fastest teams would be recognized as the party winners and receive a small souvenir reward before proceeding to the next party. For the teams that failed to clear the dungeon, I'm sorry, but your party trip will end here. However, there was no need to worry. This party is quite peaceful. As long as you don't force yourself to die, you can experience the whole process safely. Also, let me explain the rules of the racing party. 1. Participants are prohibited from leaving the wheelchair for the entire duration. This includes your augmented body, spirit body, or various derived abilities. You're prohibited from being more than 2 meters away from the wheelchair. 2. Interfering with other teams through various means is prohibited. Every round of racing will have the corresponding details engraved on the table. Remember to read them carefully. Violators will be severely punished and will not be allowed to step into the Abyss party for 50 years. Hearing this, Han Dong immediately had a guess. If I can't leave the chair, the so-called speed should be related to intelligence. Maybe it's my home ground. Of course, in a place like the Abyss party that is beyond common sense, there must be a racing mode that I can't think of. I can only adapt to the situation. There is a countdown of 10 seconds, and the racing party will begin. 1091. Haha, since it's a race, the countdown has to be faster. Let's start quickly. Everyone took off the linen headgear at the same time. There were a total of 10 tables in the gloomy and dark party area. Han Dong was in a team of 3, but there were teams of 4, 5, or even 7 people at the other tables. In terms of numbers, Han Dong's team was obviously at a disadvantage. The bright spotlights shone on the table alone, showing everyone the first round of racing content that they were about to face. What appeared in front of them was not the intelligence decryption that Han Dong expected, but a table of living meat that was piled up like a mountain. They even exuded a mythical aura, and under the stimulation of some kind of drug, their bodies continued to proliferate, almost overflowing the table. The requirements for this round of racing were engraved on the table. Eat everything on the table. Eliminating meat in any other way is against the rules. If you accidentally drop the meat on the ground, you must pick it up and eat it clean. Green could this be? That's right. Some weaklings who are not strong enough but want to go to the Abyss party. Some of them will be sent to the back kitchen to be modified. This guy in front of you should have been modified to increase meat and will continue to proliferate indefinitely. Let's start eating. The hybrid demon that had turned into a pile of rotten meat had long lost consciousness. The eyeballs all over his body were staring at the diners. and there was a desire to be eaten in his eyes. Since the other tables had begun to wolf down the food, Han Dong quickly grabbed a piece of meat that was soft and full of oil and stuffed it into his mouth. The next second, it was as if a bolt of lightning had struck his head. It wasn't delicious, but it was extremely disgusting. It even made Han Dong's body feel a sense of rejection, and even his soul felt a little uncomfortable. He quickly reached out and covered his mouth to prevent himself from turning into a spray warrior. Gurgle, gurgle, he looked troubled and swallowed it with difficulty. Han Dong, who had just experienced the extreme feast not long ago, had a huge feeling of disappointment when he tasted this. This thing was several times more smelly than eugenous, and it was even accompanied by an extremely disgusting taste. However, Green on the side was eating heartily. Sally also unceremoniously turned into a black goat, using many mouths to bite at the same time. Of course, every bite that entered her stomach would cause physiological discomfort. The black goat's body would also tremble like spasms, and things would even flow out. Even so, Sally tried to ensure that she ate as quickly as possible. Nicholas, this disgusting feeling is also processed by the back kitchen. Hurry up and get used to it. The other tables have more people than us. If we waste too much time here, we may not be able to catch up later. Vomit-wa, you. All kinds of vomiting sounds echoed in the party space. It wasn't just Han Dong who couldn't stand it. Most of the hybrid demons were the same. Once they couldn't control the speed of eating, they would start to vomit crazily. Of course, the vomit that contained the food must be eaten clean, otherwise it wouldn't count as passing the stage. Occasionally, he caught a glimpse of some hybrid demons, using their tongues to form a straw to suck the vomit and excrement on the ground. Han Dong almost vomited. The black vortex in his abdomen rotated. Han Dong tried his best to adapt to the rotten meat, from small pieces to large pieces, from chewing slowly to swallowing crazily. He did everything he could to prevent the vomiting from happening. Fourth, is the speed a bit slower. When Han Dong finished the last bite, the participants of the 3 tables in the current party area had disappeared. The next second, a hole appeared in the ground under everyone's wheelchairs. They fell to the location of the second round of the race. There was also a table in front of them, and there were hundreds of thousands of pieces of broken bones on the table. The rules were very simple. The puzzle put it back to its original appearance. Vomit, finally. It's an area I'm good at. Chapter 1732. Doctor, help me. When hundreds of thousands of fine bone fragments were placed in front of him, and he needed to assemble a complete skeleton according to the requirements, Han Dong habitually called for the doctor. But he found that the doctor was no longer in the brain and could not perform the brain-body fusion. I'm really not used to the doctor not being here. Let's do it ourselves. Han Dong was not in a hurry to assemble like the participants at the other tables. Instead, he scanned each bone fragment through the magic eye and perfectly copied the structure of each bone fragment into the brain to perform a more efficient intracranial simulation. Of course, this technique could only be used for people like Han Dong and Bob, who specialized in brain training. At least, they needed to organize an independent mind space in the brain that did not need to do other work. If the doctor was here, he could divide the brain, and the efficiency would be improved a lot. As more and more bone fragments were memorized in the brain, different simulation combinations were performed. Han Dong's scalp was slightly smoking. When the simulation was almost complete, thousands of gray-spotted tentacles immediately sprouted from the back of the brain, maximizing effect for tentacle enthusiasts. Each tentacle was as flexible as a finger, performing the assembly without any unnecessary process. Seeing this, Sally, who was sitting on the side, also stopped the assembly in her hands and handed it all over to Han Dong. As for Green, from the beginning, he did not think of assembling. He just silently observed Han Dong's performance. Nicholas is slightly slower than Bob. There was a similar intelligence game in the original game. At that time, Bob defeated all the elites with an absolute advantage and easily won the first place. The overall time taken was less than 1/10 of the second place, Eugene. Han Dong was not disturbed by the sound of the outside world. He was fully focused on the use of the brain. Gradually, an extremely strange situation occurred. The adaptive effect of faceless was adapting to the current thinking mode. Without the help of the swollen doctor, he actually imitated the scientific research posture of the fusion of the two. Gray tentacles with similar effects hung down. At the same time, a gray coat was draped over his body. At this moment, if Han Dong's skull was open to spy on the internal state, he would find that the originally independent brain had been divided into different small brain tissues that were computing in parallel. The overall assembly speed was faster than before. Not only that, but Han Dong was also entering a strange state of enlightenment. All this time, the adaptations that Faceless had expressed were mainly used in combat, whether it was the free-for-all in the Chaos Prison or the high-intensity battle against the Abyss Beholder. This was the first time he had used adaptive thinking in his brain. While Han Dong was thinking about how to solve the problem before him, the concept of faceless in his mind was slowly fading away, or rather, it was invisibly merging into his body. What is the concept? It was a simple concept that helped an individual to understand a phenomenon, a matter, or a point of view. When an individual truly understood it, they would no longer need the assistance of concept attainment. Instead, they would completely transform into their own. On the stone tablet at the bottom of the abyss, the outline of the puzzle corresponding to Faceless Myth was carved with some kind of brain-like pattern. Done. When the splicing was completed, the connecting gap was completely repaired. The skeleton of a mythical deep one with a precision of microns was displayed in front of him. It was flawless and could even be used as an excellent archaeological material. It was given to Han Dong as a figurine of equal proportions. It was kept in the manner of Prison World as an ornament. Boom! The wheelchairs that the three of them were in continued to fall, landing on the next racing scene. A rather complicated board game, Innsmouth's Shadow, was placed on the table. An exquisitely carved investigator chess piece was placed in front of each of them. The investigator's attributes were already set up beforehand. Han Dong was a mystic professor who came to Innsmouth to investigate the local mysterious phenomenon. He had high intelligence and luck, so he had a higher success rate in identifying certain strange phenomena. Shally was a female doctor who came to look for her husband. She had high appearance and will, as well as healing abilities. Grim was a money grubber. He came to Innsmouth because he heard there was a treasure hidden in the depths of the sea. He had high strength and constitution, and when he moved closer to the sea, he would gain an extra turn. The condition was simple. The investigators had to uncover the hidden truth of Innsmouth, and at least one investigator had to survive and maintain their sanity. If they failed, they would all be kicked out of the Abyss Party. Han Dong, who was immersed in thought mode, scanned through the board game. He placed his hands before his face and asked the two beside him, "Do you guys want to play? If you don't really want to, then let me play this board game alone." "Sure, Nicholas, you can play alone." "Okay." When all three chess pieces were given to Han Dong to control, it was as if Han Dong, as a faceless, was controlling the outsiders to invade Innsmouth. There was a vague feeling that there was a faceless head hiding in the clouds above the chessboard, looking down at the seaside town. The mastermind behind Innsmouth was slowly being eaten away by the three chess pieces controlled by the Faceless. Of course, the overall difficulty was still high. When Han Dong was judged to have failed several times, streams of brain juice leaked out from his nostrils. In the end, he had to make sure none of the three investigators died or went insane to find the truth. Boom! They continued to descend. It was also an intelligence decryption type. The mannequin had to make it through a complicated maze covered in fog after 10 attempts. Any dead ends or traps would be judged to have failed and returned to the entrance of the maze. That was it, other than a few eating and self-mutilation events. Most of the racing events were related to the brain. Grim was so bored that he fell asleep in his wheelchair, leaving everything to Han Dong. Done. The 10th event, card game, ended when Han Dong played the Joker card in his hand. Currently, no team was on the same floor as Han Dong and his team. Some were even several floors above. When Han Dong completed the 10th project, he did not feel the drop that he had expected. Instead, a strong presence stepped out from the shadows. A strange mantis demon with more than a dozen legs, each of which was covered with a large number of child legs, slowly stepped out. It seemed that he only took one step forward each time. In fact, in the process of one step, this guy had already run around the room 3 times or more. Even Han Dong's demonic, I couldn't capture his speed. Congratulations! You are the first team to clear the game. Your speed is really too fast. Even in the last 10 racing parties, you are the first. As a super fast clearance, in addition to the regular rewards, you can also ask me to do one thing. For example, lend you a super fast space that can restore your physical state or tell you some special insights about speed. Almost. I can feel it, almost. Han Dong, whose brain was smoking, was talking to himself in his seat. What did you say? After waiting for a moment, Han Dong suddenly raised his head and stared at the person in charge with his gray and smoking eyeballs. Can I compete with you in the speed of the brain? Nicholas. When he heard this, even Grimm woke up from his dream. His expression was both dignified and as if he wanted to laugh out loud. A hand was placed on Grimm's shoulder at the speed of light. Some kind of king's territory had been unfolded. In the domain, all matter would slow down relative to the person in charge. Brother Grimm, it doesn't matter. I haven't met such an interesting outsider for a long time. I can see that you were able to reach this level of speed on your own. Since I gave the reward, naturally I have to fulfill my promise. I, Vangelis, accept your challenge. Chapter 1733. Han Dong's judgment had some problems here. This extremely fast mantis demon had appeared at the end of the speed party. At the same time, he also awarded everyone the title of first place and gave them rewards, making Han Dong subconsciously think that this person was the project leader of the speed party. This was not the case. Vangelis, full name, Vangelis Van Dam Helsing, Abyss Supervisor he, was responsible for the supervision of many Abyss parties, and even the project leader was under his control. He never appeared unless there were special circumstances. When there were interesting or urgent situations in his supervision area, he would occasionally appear personally and deal with it as fast as possible. Currently, Han Dong had broken the record of the speed party that had been sealed for 157 years and attracted the supervisor's attention. His true strength surpassed all the powerhouses that Han Dong had seen since he came to the bottom of the abyss, and was even much stronger than the Snake Father, the middle-level Old Wangdu. He was the same as Grimm, and was also created by the ultimate chaos mold. However, there was also a unique ranking title, the third person. The so-called ranking title here referred to the few descendants born from the ultimate chaos first. Vangelis was ranked number 3. Whether it was strength, age, or knowledge, he was basically maxed out and had existed in the early days of the formation of the universe. Even Grimm, who was recognized as the son of chaos, would be a little afraid. The challenge initiated by Han Dong was unchangeable. Although Grimm was a little excited, he also carried an equal degree of worry. Vangelis, don't mess around. Nicholas is my best friend and also a member of Naya. If you kill him, it will be very troublesome. Grimm's words surprised Vangelis. He was not surprised that Han Dong was related to the Grey Walker. After all, when he paid attention to Han Dong, he had already noticed the related characteristics of the Grey, as well as the unique brain. According to his experience, he even guessed that Han Dong's brain was related to an early project of the Grey Walker. The reason why he was surprised was that Grimm would use the word best friend and speak for someone else. This was completely different from the crazy young man he knew. Vangelis responded frowny face, well, I'll definitely pay attention to that. After all, he was a crazy genius who could break the speed record. However, whether he lived or died in the end depended on him. Green, we haven't seen each other for a long time. I didn't expect you to make friends. What a surprise. Nicholas is different. There is a unique madness in him that the entire abyss does not possess. He's more interesting than any other individual I've ever met. Only he and I can complement each other. I believe you've felt it, haven't you, Vangelis? It exudes a craziness that I have never tasted before. Let's leave it at that, just in time for me to have a deeper understanding of what it is that interests you so much, Brother Green. Whoosh! The speed that Fangilis displayed directly exceeded the limits of the rules. When he disappeared from the area, Han Dong, who was sitting in the wheelchair, also disappeared. Just by moving, he directly entered a special warp dimension and followed a deeply hidden timeline in the abyss. He came to a time house where the flow of time was slower than the outside world. It was also Vangelis's office as a supervisor. What kind of speed is this? When he truly felt this speed, Han Dong was completely stunned. Because he was in this scientific research posture, due to the adaptive effect, his brain automatically tried to understand this speed and the current time house. Drip, drip, drip. Drops of light pink brain juice slid out of his nostrils and kept dripping to the ground. Smack! A palm landed on Han Dong's shoulder. The touch on the palm was quite strange. It was as if there were countless small feet gently stepping on Han Dong's shoulder. Don't try to analyze my speed. This is not something you can understand at this stage. If I really let you understand it in a few minutes, what's the point of my several eras of meditation? I'm quite looking forward to the challenge issued by the new era to let you recover to your best state. Speed reversal. Between the palm on Han Dong's shoulder, the legs and tentacles in microns began to run. The ultra-high speed running brought about the stagnation and reversal of time, which only affected Han Dong, who was touched. A clear feeling of time reversal immediately covered his entire body. The brain juice that dripped to the ground all retracted back to the moment when Han Dong was immersed in the speed competition and pieced together the skeleton of the Deep One. Han Dong felt the lightness and fullness in his brain. He couldn't help but think about the time reversal process just now. He muttered softly, "Time, you're quite adaptable." Normally, individuals who experience speed reversal for the first time will stagnate for a few minutes or even a few days to get used to this feeling. Have you come into contact with the concept of time before? Han Dong was stunned for a moment before he quickly replied, "Yes, I had a lot of interaction with the vice-chancellor when I was teaching at Mishu University. He would often teach me some dark magic knowledge, mainly including death and time. Although the time category is different, the essence is the same. So you're that guy's disciple. No wonder you can adapt to time reversal so quickly. You're a lecturer at Mishu University? No wonder you're so strong. I've always heard that the teachers at that university are quite good. Unfortunately, I have many things to do in the abyss. Otherwise, I like to go there. Come, since you're in the zone, let's not talk too much. Choose an intelligence competition that you're good at. Let's compete." Han Dong could already guess that this person wasn't a normal project manager, but someone with a higher status. I don't really know the rules. As long as it's an intelligence competition, it's fine. Senior, you can choose. If I really had to choose, it might be a rather time-consuming competition. After all, it wasn't easy to meet such an interesting young man like you. Vangelis was looking for relevant items in the time chamber filled with chaotic light. There were all kinds of strange cards, huge Rubik's cubes, all kinds of strange structures, and stone tablets made of chaos stone. He threw them all around the place. Got it. After fiddling around for half a day, he finally pulled out an ancient stone slab that could be expanded multiple times. On the sides of the stone slab, there were even grooves for cards. This is... Han Dong immediately recognized this thing. It was too familiar. The Fate chessboard. That's right. This is a replica of the Fate chessboard that I spent a lot of resources on. Although I can't replicate the threads of fate that connect the participant souls, I can still create the most suitable deck based on my own situation and experience. Come, let's play around. Okay. Han Dong immediately got into the zone and sat on the ground. Chapter 1734. Third chaos, thousand-legged god. Vangelis, the more Han Dong interacted with this fellow, the more he felt the terror of the other party. Because he was immersed in thinking about all kinds of bizarre phenomena and his reverence for the king, Han Dong never looked directly at the other party. When the chessboard of fate was completely unfolded in the time room, and the two sides sat on both sides, Han Dong looked directly at this person for the first time, because he had seen the supreme existence in the Chaos Royal Court in advance. Although the appearance in front of him was extremely shocking, Han Dong could still accept it. At the same time, due to the effect of the formless domain, the image of the nameless form in his vision was changed. Through the refraction of the magic eye's spectrum, a thin and tall humanoid man appeared in his mind. Upper body, messy black hair hung down his back. His eyes were covered by a special black silk scarf, Vangelis' cursed vision, to ensure that he could clearly see different types of timelines and flow rates when he was traveling through time at high speed. There was also a speed gem embedded in the center of his torso. The collected time particles could be stored in it when moving at high speed. It could be used as his food, and it could also be used for time replenishment in various situations. For example, for 1 second that others experienced, Vangelis could take out 2 extra seconds from the gem to give himself extra time to move. If one were to observe in detail, they would find that whether it was between the hair, the surface of the fingers, the tongue, the eyeballs, or other surfaces, they were all covered with miniature legs and feet. Lower body. It had a multi-knee structure, and the legs would be divided into 2 at the knee node. In the end, there were 108 supporting calves that were used to contact the ground. These 108 legs belonged to the main leg, and the bottom of the sole of the foot was covered with slender legs that were like fur. Nicholas, extend your palm and place on the card groove. The stone plate will have a root connection with you and be used to construct your card deck. Even if Vangelis spoke, he would also use the feet on the surface of his tongue to pronounce. The running feed of the tongue can even change the transmission speed of sound waves in a conventional medium, making the speed of sound transmission faster and more penetrative. It could even turn the sound wave into a penetrating spear and directly pierce Han Dong's head. Okay, when Han Dong reached out and touched the stone slab, buzz, a connection of consciousness was formed. The secret text on the ancient stone plate was activated, reading Han Dong's experiences and using Han Dong's main consciousness to construct the card. Very soon, a deck of cards with crimson edges formed in Han Dong's hands. Different patterns could be seen from different angles on the card back, or a blushing face, or a dark pyramid, or the faceless god floating in the air. Vangelis' card was also quickly formed. The edges were dark gold, and the pattern on the back of the card was a swastika formed by 4 legs. The basic rules are the same as the card game of fate. The only difference is, since it's a racing game, we have to set a time limit. Therefore, every time a card was dealt, it would be limited to 3 seconds. Once you exceed the time limit, you will be considered to have given up this round. If you exceed the time limit for more than 3 times, the game will be over. Alright, Han Dong, who was in a research state, had already entered the state of playing chess when he held his deck of cards. He had even found the memories of chess cards hidden in the depths of his brain and was completely immersed in them. Outside, because Han Dong was taken away, Grim and Sally stayed in the party room for the time being and were also entertained by the person in charge. Sally was still in a state of shock and asked in a low voice, "Grim, was that just now?" Yes, the third chaos, Vangelis. It must be the speed that Nicholas showed that led him here. What I didn't expect was that Nicholas would make such a crazy request. It's too exciting. However, I've already greeted Vangelis. He won't die, but it depends on how far he can go. Now I can smell a mythical scent from Nicholas. Perhaps such a crazy move will allow him to complete the final breakthrough. I'm really looking forward to what the puzzle in his body is like. Once there's a reaction, I'll drill in and take a look. Sally muttered with some worry, "Don't. Mythical structure is a very important process. Will you disturb him if you go over?" "That won't happen. I'll drill in a very gentle way. Maybe I can help him to some extent. When the time comes, Sally, you can come with me. Your breeding solution may also play a supporting role in Nicholas' mythical structure, as long as it can affect him. Sally herself also wanted to witness Han Dong go through this important process with her own eyes. Chaos Royal Court. Due to a certain matter, the Grey Walker needed to stay here for a long time and had to report to the Most High every once in a while. Today, the same meeting in the Royal Court. A rather interesting model was floating in the palm of the Grey Walker, and it had received the recognition and permission of the Most High. The Walker was allowed to establish a special channel between the Grey Kingdom, Shalnos, and the center of chaos. A fixed amount of chaotic matter and related materials could be appropriated. At the end of today's meeting, the old man on the throne suddenly said, "Grey, the young man you nurtured is in contact with Vangelis." As soon as this was said, the Walker's unpredictable face revealed a slightly surprised expression. "Third brother? That's expected. After all, third brother's personality is like this." An interesting little guy like Nicholas appearing in the party is indeed likely to attract his attention. A soft gray tentacle was attached to his forehead. Through the root connection with the faceless head, a gray dotted line invisible to the naked eye reached the bottom of the abyss, found a hidden room in the time turbulence, and established a connection. In a split second, a rather exaggerated smile appeared on the Walker's face. This kid is finally going to break through. Even I'm somewhat looking forward to it. After all, he is walking on a different gray path from mine, and at the same time, he is also fused with his unique madness and rationality. Brother Vangelis should give me face and provide the relevant supplements for mythical structure. Time room, drip, drip, drip. The brain fluid flowing from Han Dong's nose and the sweat dripping from his forehead were synchronized with the second hand in the room. The reason why the pressure was so great was mainly because of the harsh time limit. However, Han Dong still maintained a 100% state of concentration. His pupils were completely covered in gray, and every pore on his body was exhaling gray air. In contrast, Vangelis, who thought he could easily deal with it, became more and more unsightly as time passed. The time gem embedded in his chest was about to use up all the extra time. Han Dong's mastery of fate chess was not like a beginner's at all. On the contrary, it was like a veteran who had practiced for hundreds or thousands of years. If there was no time limit, it would be even more abnormal. The chessboard has been unfolded from the 5th to the 18th layer, and this guy can still keep up? How long has this guy lived? Did he specifically train with chess cards? At this moment, a burst of strong aura hit him like a wave. Squeak, squeak, plump, flexible gray tentacles grew from Han Dong's neck, like flowers, completely wrapped Han Dong's head as if a new head was being bred. Even so, the chess game did not stop. You want to break through the mythical level here? Chapter 1735. Han Dong didn't care about the interference from the outside world or the final outcome of this speed game. All he wanted was to complete this game well. As long as he could do it to the extreme, it would be enough. Although I've only played it once, the feeling of playing cards again is still so familiar. It's as if I'm standing in front of the door of truth again. After all, the experience back then is engraved in the depths of my mind. Since I have such an opportunity, I must cherish it. It was very different from the first time he came into contact with the game. Back then, due to his unfamiliarity with the game, Han Dong could only slowly adapt in the early stages of the game. By the time he finally got through the adaptation period, the game had become extremely unfavorable. The pressure brought by the Master of Fate continued to stack, and Han Dong didn't even have a chance to breathe. It was different now. Han Dong no longer needed to adapt, and the pressure given by the opponent was much less. Due to the fact that he had finished warming up in advance during the speed game party, Han Dong had an immersive experience at the beginning of the game. Combined with the faceless perception, he completely integrated himself into the deck. It wasn't like playing cards. It was more like reliving his own fate experience. Every time he played a card, it was as if he was witnessing his past experiences. To be precise, he was standing in the shadows as a faceless person, watching his past experiences. Unknowingly, he had already played the cards in his hand, and he kept playing cards for no more than 3 seconds. I didn't expect that I would have experienced so many things in just 10 years. All this time, I've been living under a human mask that I thought was normal and belonged to me. What am I? This answer was actually given when the black and white teacher recruited me as an entry-level student. I am me. This is the real answer. As a faceless person, Han Dong came to the prison where the cell cluster was first born. Step by step, he stepped into this familiar yet strange prison, touching the cold walls and the corpses in different cells. This included the body of the retarded boxer and the saintess. He even spied on the slowly migrating cell cluster. In order to find the best answer, he kept crawling to every cell to screen the corpses, constantly giving up in the pursuit of perfection. What a nostalgic cell stage. Han Dong did not continue observing the slowly migrating cell clusters. Instead, he strode to the center of the prison. The warden's office with a faceless mark engraved on the door was located here. It was also the starting point of Han Dong's identity as faceless. The door should have required a key to open. But when Han Dong approached on foot, Wang, along with a resonance, the mark on the door emitted bursts of gray light, and the door opened. It was as if Han Dong was the person in charge here, the warden himself. The familiar interior structure appeared in front of his eyes, but one thing was missing. In a transparent jar filled with solution, there was no faceless head that should have been there. Staring at the scene before him, Han Dong immediately made a decision. Whoosh! He personally cut off the head, stored it in a container, and waited quietly. After an unknown period of time, the cluster of cells had finally arrived. They abandoned their useless bodies and climbed onto the surface of the container, making their final choice. The moment the cluster of cells drilled into Han Dong's faceless head, the last piece of the puzzle on the surface of the Abyss stone tablet was finally completed. A gray, smooth, faceless head. In the center of the head, there is a small that symbolizes a cluster of cells. A large number of tentacles are wriggling wildly in the back of the head. The Faceless Myth puzzle has been completed. Quality. Legendary. Highest grade puzzle. Fit. 0%. It needs to be improved through subsequent training to improve the fit with the mythical puzzle, which will affect the special trait given by the puzzle. Full fit is the basic requirement to become a king. Special. Fate Special. This mythical puzzle has the characteristics of the hybrid demons. It will be registered separately by the Black Tower as a special case. Special trait. Legendary. Frowny face faceless god. Passive. Faceless will be extremely efficient in adapting to everything inside and outside, responding to different situations with the best posture. In addition, under the effect of the faceless god, the basic method of god borrowing, faceless, will change. The individual can use advanced disguise to replicate at the level of divinity, greatly reducing the cost of god borrowing and increasing the total duration. When the fit reaches 100%, the faceless god will reveal his true appearance. When the last piece of the puzzle was formed, there was a change in the space of consciousness. Unlike the change in the overall environment of the space of consciousness when the first 2 fragments were formed, under the talent tree, there was a young man who looked exactly like the human Han Dong, with a faceless mask hanging diagonally on the side of his head. His existence was both virtual and real. Sometimes he existed, stroking the trunk of the tree. Sometimes he disappeared, as if blending into heaven and earth. Sometimes he walked among the tombstones, familiarizing himself with the environment here. It was as if a guardian of consciousness was wandering here. At the same time, the abyss of truth between the talent tree holes began to tremble and shake violently. It seemed that something extremely important was happening at the bottom of the abyss. The lens was pulled to the deepest part. The stone tablet that symbolized the mythical truth was shrouded in thick gray fog. The 3 pieces of the puzzle that were engraved on the surface were no longer separated, but were merging. 1. The exaggerated, crazily laughing face perfectly blended into the faceless head that had no facial features. 2. The faceless head was connected to the skeleton of the pharaoh with a rotten crow standing on its left shoulder. At the same time, other areas of the stone tablet also began to carve on their own. It constructed a gray world full of antiquity, biotechnology, and black death. The Pharaoh of Death, formed by the fusion of 3 pieces of the puzzle, held up the faceless head with the exaggerated smiling face with its skeletal hands, overlooking this gray world. A mythical picture scroll, in the true sense of the word, was formed here. Perhaps one day, the content of this picture scroll would be presented in reality, forming a special king's territory that belonged to Han Dong alone. In addition, due to the drawing and carving of the stone tablet, the excess stones were removed. If observed from a certain angle, the shape of the stone tablet was somewhat like the throne. Although it seemed that everything was completed, it was still one step away from the mythical realm. It required Han Dong's consciousness to come here to observe, experience, and accept this brand new picture scroll. And the reason why Han Dong's consciousness did not come down was very simple. He didn't even know what was going on here. He was still completely immersed in the game of fate. Now he just wanted to complete this game with all his strength. And because of this completely selfless state, the bottom of the abyss continued to undergo subtle changes. The stone tablet that had already been completed was still being polished slowly. Chapter 1736. The current state of the god of 1,000 feet, Vangelis, could be described as feet, head, and forehead. The stone board made by imitating the cards of fate had gone through a total of 46 different arrays. Each piece needed to be effectively moved and arranged in attack and defense. In addition, there was a time limit of 3 seconds per round, so that every second required a lot of thinking. Vangelis' forehead and the inner layer of his brain were full of small legs and feet. Through super fast running, he bought more time for his brain to think. There's something wrong with this guy. His current state should be undergoing the crucial, mythical structure. Why hasn't he completed the final construction and his level is still at atavism? What's the problem that caused him to focus all his attention on chess? If this continues, I really can't hold on. Vangelis had long regretted his choice. He never thought that a young man of the new era could be so proficient in the cards of fate. However, he should have reached his limit long ago. What made him persist to this extent? The madness that exists in the depths of the root. This is the only possibility. Otherwise, a normal person would never ignore the mythical breakthrough and still focus on playing chess. Is the purity of madness actually so high? It can't be seen on the surface at all. If this continues, it may cause the mythical failure. The body and spirit will be annihilated along with the mythical puzzle. It's a pity for such a talent to die. I have to quickly end this game. Although Vangelis was more concerned about Han Dong's life, he would never go easy on him or directly end the game. He was very clear that Han Dong must have his reasons for still persisting in playing chess. The best outcome was to go all out to determine the winner. Currently, Han Dong, who was sitting opposite the stone board, had a large number of tentacles wrapped around his head. Due to the adaptive effect brought by the faceless, his whole body was covered with brain tissue. The number of derived brains was equal to the number of pieces separated from a board. But with a large number of data calculations, each brain was in a shriveled state, withering like a leaf. The game had entered the final stage. Han Dong's character card had the last drop of blood left, and Vangelis had 3 drops of blood left. The trump card in Vangelis' hand, the god of 1,000 feet, had finally completed its final evolution. Whether it was the main board or the pieces, it was covered with his feet. It was as if a 1,000-foot army was marching forward. If any chessboard was lost, Han Dong's last drop of health would be deducted. However, what made Vangelis very concerned was that Han Dong had placed a trap card in the depths of the main chessboard a long time ago, but it hadn't been triggered yet. Furthermore, since the first 10 rounds, Han Dong had been placing a large number of weak individuals or spawns on the chessboard. These cannon fodders could not possibly stop the advance of the thousand-legged army. Let's end it. When the thousand-legged god crossed the center line of the stone board, the trap card placed in front of Han Dong was finally revealed, Cell Division. Because the trap card has sunk for more than 5 rounds, its effect will affect all chessboards. At the same time, he used the magic card Faceless. In all areas of a chessboard, the individuals occupied by the cells all turned into powerful faceless ones. This was also the first full-scale battle between the two sides in the entire chessboard. In the end, both sides lost 10 HP. Life points returned to 0, draw with the end of the game. Han Dong's body, which had long reached its limit, began to disintegrate, and cracks began to appear on his overloaded body of consciousness. Oh no, this guy is really going to die. Although Vangelis was also exhausted, he urgently needed to sleep in the long river of time. Considering the relationship between Han Dong and his big brother, as well as Green's previous emphasis, Ka, the time gem embedded in his chest was forcefully pulled down and thrown directly at Han Dong's collapsing body. It accurately fit the center of Han Dong's abdomen and the black vortex point. The adaptive effect continued to play out. The black vortex received the gem and began to rotate and activate. A time field enveloped Han Dong's entire body, reducing the speed of Han Dong's disintegration to 1,100 times the original speed. Who told you to force me step by step and make the fate chessboard so complicated? My brain is about to explode, and I don't have the energy to go back in time. The extra time has been given to you. Good luck. Vangelis had not been as weak as he was now for a long time. He even needed to grow legs between his skull to support the brain tissue that could collapse into tofu dregs at any time. At this moment, Han Dong's shoulder cavity overflowed with a familiar breath. As the hole in the shoulder cavity expanded, Green quickly climbed out, and at the same time, he pulled Sally's head out with him. Vangelis, I didn't expect you to hide in such a deep area to compete in speed. Han Dong's state is very strange. Maybe he will really die completely. Green stared at the terrible situation in front of him and inserted his finger into the small hole in his cheek. He was not careful and even dug out a terrible crack in his cheek. Sally, quickly help Han Dong with the cell breeding and stop his body from disintegrating. Stay in my body and heal. The crack in Green's cheek produced a huge suction force, sucking Han Dong and Sally into his body. The area they were about to go to would be the most important crazy center in Green's body. The crazy breath that pervaded there could produce a good resonance with Han Dong. Sally did not care at all where they would fall. Just as she was sampling Han Dong's body, a stone shining with green light rolled out. This is the snake father's gallbladder. If this thing exists, Nicholas may be able to reverse rebirth and stabilize his body. Sally tried to send the snake gallbladder to Han Dong's mouth. She found that his head was completely wrapped in gray tentacles and was in a special state before advancement. It cannot be opened at all. Out of helplessness, Sally could only first chew the snake gallbladder in her mouth to ensure that no essence was lost and send it into Han Dong's body through the tentacles. Thump! A loud and powerful heartbeat spread in Han Dong's body. A rich and strong vitality energy quickly spread throughout his body, like a swimming green snake crawling in his body. The collapsing body immediately stopped, and the body even began to reform. At the same time, the same madness in Green's body was also stimulating Han Dong's unconscious consciousness. Even the tentacles wrapped around Han Dong's head began to wriggle, actively absorbing the essence of the madness here. The consciousness that might never wake up was slowly recovering. Green, slap. It seemed that someone gently patted him on the shoulder. When Han Dong opened his eyes, he was falling in the abyss. The abyss was not in Green's body, but in Han Dong's own space of consciousness, the abyss of truth. Boom! When he fell to the bottom, it was already filled with gray fog. Peeling off the thick fog and approaching the stone tablet in the center, what reflected in his eyes was the prototype of a throne, as Han Dong had not arrived. The stone tablet continued to be carved. The basic outline of the throne had been formed. Behind the back of a chair was the newly formed mythical drawing. Han Dong did not run to the back of the stone throne to see the final shape of the drawing, but went straight to the front and instinctively sat on it. In an instant, a magnificent and profound mythical drawing was reflected in his mind. The various characteristics in his body began to merge, and a new mythical territory had been mastered by Han Dong. Whether it was his consciousness, soul, or body, they had all reached a new height. The abyss of truth in front of him became clearer, and the words of truth carved on the wall became clearer. Sitting on the stone throne, Han Dong felt that he could touch the truth with a gentle stretch of his hand, and that he could limit and change the rules that already existed in reality. When he opened his palm, a cross-shaped crack appeared in his palm. The demonic sword drilled out of his palm and hung obediently above his palm. The substance flowing on the surface of the sword became easier to understand, and the connection between the two became stronger. Finally, a mythical body. It's not easy. Chapter 1737. The truth on the stone wall of the abyss is clearly visible. Now, it seems that the transition from mythical to king. It should be to compare the mythical drawings and excavate this abyss of truth to create my own king's territory. And because I have the qualifications of a new king, I should be able to complete the carving of the throne while excavating the king's territory. This kind of feeling was simply too great. No wonder individuals at the level of atavism were determined to be impossible to kill mythical bodies. The feeling of holding the truth in his hands was as if he had broken free from the shackles of the world and the conventional concept of life and death. If he wanted to be killed, he had to use an attack that touched the level of truth. The domain that reached the mythical stage was considered a personal domain in the true sense. Reality can be interfered within the domain. That is, the original matter in reality can be replaced and covered, using the experienced rules of truth to affect some conventional ideas in the domain. In the square inch, I am the supreme. Moreover, just as I guessed, the three different domains have completed the trinity with the mythical construction and the compatibility of non-phase. If there is a chance, I really want to fight. Han Dong, who was sitting between the stone seats, closed his eyes and felt the changes of complete sublimation. He couldn't help but laugh crazily. The laughter directly caused the entire abyss to tremble. There were even tens of thousands of black balloons full of smiling faces floating into the sky, until the laughter filled the entire space of consciousness. It even resonated with the fruits on the talent tree. The tombs between the cemeteries began to loosen, as if corpses wanted to crawl out. The individual who looked exactly like Han Dong also stopped and listened to the laughter quietly. The laughter could affect and even destroy the environment. At the same time, it could also sense everything in the current environment. When the laughter enveloped the temporarily built Taoist temple, it was like a blood arrow piercing through the brain. It even made Han Dong, who had just become a mythical, feel a sharp pain in his head. His expression changed drastically. Smack! Han Dong slapped the armrest of the stone seat heavily and rushed straight to the top of the abyss. A few seconds later, Han Dong, who was holding the bright red fruit in his hand, stared at the Taoist temple that was wrapped in a dark red blood mist as he gnawed on it. To be exact, under the bright red decoration, the originally dilapidated Taoist temple had turned into a scarlet mansion that Han Dong was extremely familiar with. Thick, viscous blood flowed between the walls. From time to time, various strange skeletons that symbolized the underworld blood divine sect would appear. As the main body of consciousness, Han Dong was actually unable to control this building. He couldn't even peek at it. It was as if it was someone's private territory. This guy, Count, actually opened up his own territory in my space of consciousness. Is it the influence of the demonic book, or is it his own will? Let's go in and take a look. Han Dong wasn't angry at all. Instead, he felt quite gratified when he saw such a bloody building. This meant that Count must have made a breakthrough while cultivating the demonic book. Tap when Han Dong stepped into the Blood Mansion. Strange skulls immediately appeared on both sides of the walls. With the help of the blood flowing on the surface of the walls, they condensed into a bloody body that was draped in dark red robes. The coat of arms mounted on the back of the robe symbolized the identity of the blood oath holder. They knelt in rows on both sides of the hall, as if welcoming Han Dong, a special VIP. Han Dong's attention, however, stopped at the huge picture frame hanging in the middle of the hall. It depicts the scene of Count playing the piano solo in the private theater. At the same time, there's a young man wearing a crow mask standing at the entrance of the theater. Han Dong immediately saw some unusual artistic conception in this painting. Creak. At the same time, a secret door at the bottom opened. Streams of blood that seemed to have life and independent consciousness flowed out from the passage behind the secret door. The blood even condensed into the structure of an arm on its own, beckoning Han Dong to go to the deepest part. Count, this guy must have made a great breakthrough in the cultivation of the demonic book. At the same time, he has become a little more interesting. Han Dong immediately realized something and quickened his pace into the passage. From walking to moving at high speed, he was very familiar with the passage in front of him, which led directly to Count's private theater. Before he arrived, he could already hear a burst of impassioned and powerful melody, and even the blood flowing on the ground was following the rhythm. When he stepped into the private theater, on the stage, Count, who was wrapped in blood, was playing Mozart's Symphony No. 5. Han Dong noticed several important details. 1. The conical eye protection that Count wore for many years has disappeared, and he is currently playing the symphony with his eyes closed. 2. The demonic book, the mysterious Lord's 7 chapters secret sutra, is placed on the piano. Count seems to have completely won the recognition of the demonic book or learned the basic content of the first chapter. 3. Judging from the aura that Count exudes, he is only a thin film away from the mythical level. It should be noted that because Han Dong has completely turned into a faceless person, he can adapt to everything. The body can effectively block external perception. Even the blood that climbed up Han Dong's calf cannot perceive Han Dong's current level and strength. Count, who has been immersed in the demonic book and even built a consciousness manner privately, does not know what is happening outside. At the end of the solo, the Count said in a low voice, "I'm really sorry. I copied the Scarlet Mansion on the basis of the Taoist temple on a whim. Moreover, it is condensed from the purest blood and the demonic book that I have comprehended. It is a real Scarlet House. I have basically learned the first volume of the demonic book, and now my control of all things has risen to a whole new level." At this time, Count got up from the piano bench and faced Han Dong. He slowly opened his eyes that had been closed for a long time. The moment they looked at each other, Han Dong actually felt like his eyeballs were being pierced. Drip, drip, drip. There was even blood flowing from the corner of his eyes. There is a special pupil in Count's eyes. The pupil presents a cone-shaped circle structure, and there is a blood-colored sword in the circle. This feature shows that Count's control of the Holy Sword has risen and he is ready to go to the holy level. Not bad. Han Dong smiled. Count made a very respectful aristocratic bow. "Nicholas, I have a small request. Please kill me again here. Of course, if you can't do it, I will expand the size of the mansion and take over your space of consciousness. After all, your body is really great." Okay. As soon as he finished, the walls of the entire theater began to ooze blood. Count rushed straight toward him on the bright red tide. Whether it is speed, power, or momentum, it is completely different from before. The shadow of a blood dog that almost filled the entire theater appeared behind him. It seemed to want to swallow Han Dong in one bite. Lines of blood-like stripes covered his body and condensed into a pure, holy sword in his palm, pointing directly at Han Dong's brain. 3 minutes passed. Inside the smashed private theater, Han Dong sat on the edge of the stage with his legs crossed, holding Count's head that was cut off. "Not bad. You can hold on for so long. It's time to send you to find the inheritance of the holy blood." Count is still in a state of confusion. They could not accept the strength that Han Dong had just displayed, especially that strange, unpredictable, and terrifying domain that he could not defend against. When did you reach the mythical level? Just now? You're almost there. With your current state, you should be able to go to the Dawn of Terror in a short time. When I leave the center of chaos, I will send you there. Count, well done. Han Dong reached out and gently stroked Count's head. He even imagined the scene of Count returning with the perfect holy sword inheritance. Chapter 1738. Of course, Han Dong would not be angry because of Count's rebellious actions. He could understand very well that Count's rebellious mentality mostly came from the influence of the demonic book. After all, even a pure individual like Pop would be contaminated by the demonic book. It was completely normal for Count to have a certain psychological change. Han Dong even hoped that Count could become more aggressive, which would help in the subsequent battles. At the same time, Han Dong also allowed Count to occupy a private territory in the space of consciousness, which was the existence of the Scarlet Mansion. Since all the matters in the space of consciousness had been settled, Han Dong did not stay any longer. If possible, Han Dong still wanted to continue the Abyss Party. Consciousness returns to body. Tick-tock, tick-tock. A clock, made of different leg bones, was turning. Obviously, Han Dong was still in the time room with the third chaos, Vangelis. His body was lying on a bed made of tens of thousands of legs. These legs would regularly press on his back, and even had a massage effect on the soul. Obviously, this belonged to the third chaos, Vangelis' bed. You're awake. It was another familiar greeting, which reminded Han Dong of many bad memories. But Han Dong scanned the room and did not find anyone. Just as the field of perception was about to spread out, the footbed, where Han Dong was lying on, came from a squirming movement. Some of the legs were pieced together and constructed Vangelis' head. This head, with a terrifying smile, happened to appear on the side of Han Dong's face. After being stimulated like this, Han Dong had a feeling that he was sleeping on the body of the King of Chaos. He quickly jumped out of bed as if he had been electrocuted. Senior, this bed can't be you. Soon, Vangelis' body emerged from the footbed. He was simply fused into the bed, not the body of the footbed. Han Dong's brain retained Vangelis' personified image, a slender man with a time gem embedded in his chest and many knees and calf branches. Han Dong, who was slowly coming back to his senses, also smelled the other two scents. Senior, why are there Green and Sally's auras here? They help you a lot when you were about to die. Following your mythical breakthrough and prolonged coma, they have been forced to leave the party. Moreover, if your speed can't keep up, staying in my room for a long time will cause a lot of damage to your body. But you don't have to worry. Whoosh! Vangelis, who had been sitting on the edge of the bed, instantly appeared in front of Han Dong and reached out his hand to press against the center of the black vortex on his abdomen. At the last moment, seeing that we were tied, I lent the time gem to your body for a period of time. Currently, your body can adapt well to the flow of time here. It won't be a problem for me to stay here for 10 days to half a month. Thank you, Senior. Although your actions are very suicidal, they also reveal a rather pure and crazy nature. Considering some things, I don't want you to die just like that. I have a different flow rate here than outside, about a ratio of 1:10. You don't have to worry about the problem of time consumption. Why don't you talk to me about the fate chessboard? Sure, Senior, ask away. You bastard, did you study the fate board in private? Or did you train specifically for this when you were growing and adventuring in fate? That's not it. It's just that when I was opening the door, I played a very long and memorable game. It had a great impact on me, so much so that the relevant rules and the basics of playing cards were deeply engraved in my mind. Sometimes, I would play a few games in my dreams. You really only played once when you were opening the door? What kind of monster are you? Vangelis actually used the word monster. One must know that before he became the Abyss Overseer, He would cause mass fear in any star field he set foot in. He was a chaotic monster in the eyes of the hybrid demons. Maybe it's because my condition is better. Moreover, if the final result is calculated based on HP, I actually lost. If my memory is correct, after being injured, my HP is -9 and senior should be -7. All right, let's put this matter behind us. Speaking of which, do you want this thing? I don't want to touch it at all. Since you're so talented, I'll give it to you. Although there's still some difference between the stone plate and the real fate chessboard, it's basically the same. If you're really interested, you can continue to complete it. Vangelis folded the stone plate into a normal size and handed it over directly. This, thank you, Senior. Handong was very clear about the value of this thing. If he had this thing, he could even cooperate with the doctor in the future and carry out special brain training. Of course, I'm not giving it to you for free. I have a few questions here. It's the first time I've seen a talent like you. Ask away, Senior. Brother Naya's judgment of people is indeed first-rate. The source of your brain should be the prison that was replaced by dreamlands in ancient times, right? Since the other party had guessed to this extent and called the Grey Walker brother, Han Dong did not hide it and nodded slightly. Yes, as expected, I knew that brother would not give up on this great design. But I never thought that it would be presented in such a way. Perhaps this way is better than using it as a sanctuary like the Dreamlands. As expected of him. All right, I have something to tell you, Senior. What is it? Senior should be a relatively ancient existence. Have you come into contact with the realm of destiny? Do you want to talk about the pagoda? When I was first born, that place had not sealed us yet. I have also played a few fate games. It's not bad. But it's a pity that there was a conflict later on, so I did not continue to come into contact with it. Thinking about it, it's a very long time ago. I kind of miss it. Senior, do you know about the Black Tower? Yes. Why? What's the matter? Han Dong immediately told him in detail about the Black Tower that might have gone out of control. After listening to it, Vangelis actually stuck out his tongue full of floating legs and revealed an excited and crazy expression. Oh, is that so? That tower is actually unable to restrain them? It seems that the rampagers that you mentioned are a group of rather dangerous existences. To be honest, I'm a little tired of staying down here. I was just saying that I want to look for something to play. If these rampagers really dare to come over, I'll play with them properly. Just like that. Han Dong conveniently released this information in the Chaos realm. As the supervisor, the third Chaos should be able to convey this information. A piece of chaotic color of the world gear also began to rotate. Chapter 1739. It was Han Dong's request to fight the Abyss Overseer. Therefore, it was also considered a part of the Abyss Party. The time spent on advancing to the mythical stage and resting had long exceeded the time limit of the party. Han Dong had been automatically judged to have given up and ended the trip to the Abyss Party early. He had experienced 3 different parties during this trip to the Abyss Party, so he had obtained Abyss Points X3. The next time he came, he could spend in the party room. For example, a top-notch enjoyment like the Extreme Feast would cost him 3 points per person. Although I still want to continue being crazy, it's enough to think about it carefully. I've already enjoyed what I need to enjoy, and my harvest is no less than the other participants. Let's go up. Since I've reached the mythical stage, there's still many things waiting for me to do. It was similar to the process of falling. The individuals who completed the Abyss Party needed to leave on their own, and the way to the upper end could be freely chosen. They could climb or fly against the chaotic airflow. Those with the ability could even use spatial teleportation directly. Although Han Dong had reached the mythical stage, he was still very self-aware. He still didn't dare to use void teleportation in such a place. If he wasn't careful, he might be swept into the unknown abyss. Instead, he chose the safest method. A large number of black balloons were tied to Han Dong's hand, dragging his body upward. When he passed by some areas of the lower-level residents, their gazes were attracted by this strange scene. As they stared at these balloons, there would be bursts of crazy laughter between their skulls. This madness that they had never felt before immediately caused them to reach an intracranial climax. They wouldn't take the initiative to attack Han Dong at all. There were even some lower-level residents who let out similar laughter. Han Dong didn't float directly to the Chaos Court. Instead, he descended to a familiar platform under the guidance of the balloons. He was going to pick up someone here. This was the area where the lower-level residents' assessment was carried out. Han Dong directly found the person in charge here. "Excuse me, what was the result of the assessment of the special ghoul I sent here previously?" The person in charge didn't check the records at all and quickly remembered such a special existence. After all, a low-level race like the ghoul hadn't come here for the identity assessment of the lower-level residents for thousands of years. Is it the ghoul called Corpse Gang? Very good. It passed the assessment of the lower-level identity at the atavistic level. It's a special existence that exceeds conventional knowledge. I'm also very happy that such a special ghoul can stay at the bottom. He should be able to make some contributions to Voracious Eater. But he was picked up by Christopher J. Green a day ago. Oh, has Green been picked up? I didn't expect that corpse zombie would actually pass the test of the lower-level residents. Who would have thought that this guy was a mature body that was about to die a month ago? Han Dong had a bad premonition that the chaos sample that he had accidentally obtained might be taken away by someone. At this moment, Han Dong sensed a familiar and powerful aura, and gray tentacles grew out of his head to match this familiar feeling. The person in charge of the basic level assessment immediately stuck his entire body to the ground. He even stuck out his tongue and formed a special formation on the ground to express his respect. A pair of gray leather shoes stepped out, and his body appeared behind Han Dong. "I've been waiting for you up there for a long time. Why are you wasting time here? You don't need the identity of a low-level resident, do you?" Han Dong quickly explained the matter of the ghouls. "Oh, there's this kind of talent. If it's really as you said, there's such a change in just a few months. Even I'm very interested. It's even possible that this ghoul will be chosen as your substitute. However, from your current situation, no matter how special this ghoul is, it can't be replaced. It's good to let him stay in the abyss. If he has enough talent, he will naturally be chosen by the chaos. Come with me. I've been waiting for you for a day. Senior, where are we going?" Han Dong still wanted to meet Grim and Sally. "I've finished my business in the Chaos Court. There are still many things waiting for me to deal with in the kingdom. I'm leading you to my kingdom world for one thing. To complete your reward in the London game room. The Book of the Dead. That's right. This is extremely unstable and can even threaten the foundation of the world. The truth remnant pages that can be found and collected are all kept in the depths of the kingdom by my avatar and many faceless priests to suppress and seal them. If you can successfully control it and take away a part or all of it, it will save me a lot of trouble." "Okay." Han Dong hurriedly wrote a letter and handed it to the examiner lying on the ground, hoping that he could pass it to Grim. Under normal circumstances, the examiner would definitely not agree. He was the tester in charge of the bottom level. But Han Dong in front of him could actually have such a high-level conversation with the Grey Walker. "I'll do it right away." He hurriedly used his tongue to roll the letter into his body. Like a snake, he drilled into the special passage between the abyss walls and headed toward the Chaos Court area. At the same time, Han Dong thought, if it's the professor, let him stay here for a while. Such an opportunity is not easy to come by again. I'll go down to pick him up after I retrieve the truth remnant pages of the Book of the Dead. The walker patted Han Dong's shoulder gently. "Let's go, keep up with my speed." Because of the cooperation with the chaos, the Mad Abyss has established a hidden passage with my kingdom. We could go directly from here. As soon as he finished speaking, a circle of gray light wrapped around the walker's body and flew directly into the sky at an extremely high speed. So fast, since the walker had made the request, Han Dong could no longer float slowly with the help of the balloon. Holding the brief history of the void, he followed the array described on one of the pages and carved the corresponding blood mark on the soles of his feet. In his mind, he recalled the special feeling when he was with Bob. The high-level imitation brought about by the mythical form made Han Dong's head seem to emit some starlight, and his entire body became transparent. He took a step forward. It felt different from before. Han Dong seemed to have glimpsed some truths related to the void. He was no longer as confused as before. He felt that every step he took was real on the path of the void. Even if there was a chaotic airflow disturbing the space, he could accurately step on the slender and curved void path. Starlight flickered between the walls of the abyss. Han Dong used the void steps to keep up with the walker's flying speed. Not bad. He passed through different abyss passages, followed some unfamiliar, narrow sub-abyss, and continued to move forward, as if he was about to reach a remote location on the Chaos Star. A gray passage appeared at the bottom of an independent abyss. When he entered the passage, he immediately felt a sense of compression and folding of the plane. Buzz! His skull trembled when the vision in front of him gradually became clear. A vast and boundless gray world came into view. It corresponded to the world title deed, Upper King, Shalnos. Only a primitive superworld like S01 could separate out such a symbolic subworld's world title deed. Only the top kings were qualified to construct such a title deed. Chapter 1740. Stepping into Shalnos, Han Dong actually felt like he had returned home. The whole world was actively trying to get along with Han Dong. Gray tentacles automatically grew out from the back of his head, and his mouth opened for breathing, sucking in the gray air here with great affinity. Similarly, Han Dong could also easily see through the clouds here, looking at the vast gray world with his magic eye. His face was quickly filled with shock. The scale of this world is probably bigger than some large worlds, comparable to a sub-super world. S01 can actually separate an independent world of this scale, and there is far more than one. Perhaps S01 itself has been out of the control of the Black Tower for so many years, and its scale has exceeded the scope of a superworld. This is too exaggerated. Come with me, Nicholas. You better not stay here for too long. I don't want the world I created to have too much influence on you. Your faceless myth needs to be separated from mine. If you stay too long, your body will adapt and simulate the gray here, which is not a good thing for you. Okay, it was not the first time the walker mentioned the differences, and Han Dong could roughly understand. Whoosh! There was no need to fly for the rest of the journey. The walker was the master here, and the rules of the world were created by him. He waved his hand gently. The whole world was centered around the walker, and the earth rotated. It looked like Han Dong and the walker were flying at high speed. As the whole world rotated, the center of the world of Shalnos slowly came to the two of them. Between the overlapping ring-shaped mountains, there was a stitched city. The stitched city was a combination of at least 20 human city styles, including ancient Egypt, ancient Huaxia, ancient Babylon, and the European Middle Ages that Han Dong was quite familiar with, and so on. It could be seen that the walker really liked the human race, and his avatars had traces of living in various eras of human development. It was precisely because of this that such a city style was formed. In addition, Han Dong could sense more than 10 king-level individuals, and among them, Han Dong was quite familiar with Mother of the Night and who returned to live in Shalnos after the London game ended. When the gray figure appeared in the sky above the city, all the residents of the capital knelt on the ground in a devout manner. Come with me. Under the guidance of the walker, Han Dong arrived at the top of a magnificent pyramid. This giant pyramid was built in the center of the capital, which showed its importance. At the same time, he also felt a familiar and strong aura. Senior, could this pyramid be the embodiment of the Black Pharaoh? That's right. It's the avatar you borrowed from the London game room. It's one of my favorite and most powerful avatars. You were able to control it back then because you have the Pharaoh attribute and are highly compatible with it. The true remnant page of the Book of Necromancy was sealed at the bottom of the pyramid by the Black Pharaoh and the faceless priest that I personally chose. This time, he didn't use spatial teleportation, nor did he use any special means to reach the bottom. Instead, they took a highly airtight lift and went to the bottom of the pyramid in a slow and steady manner. Crack, crack. Every time they descended a certain distance, they would get stuck and stop for a period of time, just as they descended to the middle of the pyramid. As if an electric current had passed through Han Dong's mind, the demonic eye between his eyebrows opened automatically, as if it had been attracted by something of the same origin. Slowly, the demonic eye became somewhat uncontrollable, as if it had its own consciousness and was constantly moving in the eye socket. However, with the intervention of Han Dong's subjective consciousness, a black vortex formed in the eye. The demonic eye's restlessness slowly calmed down. It's normal to have a reaction. The Book of Necromancy is publicly acknowledged as the ultimate demonic book that can destroy the world. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been torn apart by the chaos. The remnant pages are either kept in the hands of superiors like me, or directly thrown into the shattered dimensions for the safest storage. As long as this book exists, it can easily affect individuals with consciousness, not to mention people like you who have secretly learned the copy. It's indeed very strange. However, I can withstand it. By the way, Senior, is the remnant page of the eye sealed here? The pre-scroll and the remnant page of the eye. The pre-scroll is the basic standard to determine whether you can enter the sect. If you can perfectly control the pre-scroll, you will also receive partial recognition from the Book of Necromancy. Although the danger still exists, at least you can carry out normal learning and sensing. Han Dong quickly asked, sensing? Does it mean that once I master the pre-scroll, I can sense the location of the other remnant pages? It can't be said that I can completely sense it, but the general direction can be determined. After all, there were chosen ones who learned the pre-scroll before you. It's a pity that those fellows completely lost control in the process of searching for the remnant pages and learning, turning into dead souls. They even brought destructive disasters to some of the old kings. Sensing? That's quite good. Click. When the elevator reached the bottom, there was the sound of heavy stones moving outside, as if an underground passage was temporarily being built. When the sealed elevator slowly opened, a whisper directly entered Han Dong's brain. It was different from any whisper that he had heard so far. This sound seemed to be able to trigger all the evil desires in Han Dong's body, quickly unlocking the shackles of his rationality like a universal key. However, Han Dong was indifferent, and he was too lazy to even laugh maniacally. Evil desires. Han Dong did not have many evil desires from the beginning to the end, or rather, he did not have any at all. If one had to talk about desires, for Han Dong, the strongest desire was the pursuit of knowledge. When he was alive, as a human, he placed the desire for knowledge first. Whenever there was a breakthrough in any direction, Han Dong would be so excited that he could not sleep in the laboratory. Whether it was the text message from the female teacher next door or the voicemail from the delivery boy, he would not care at all. Not to mention coming to this great world full of knowledge as a cell body. Currently, the whisper from the demonic book did not stop the influence. On the contrary, it stimulated Han Dong's eagerness to read and learn the Book of the Dead Soul. There was no other unnecessary thought at all. You are indeed the best candidate. The chosen ones who have passed through layers of screening will be affected in various ways when they get close. Perhaps you can really control the Book of the Dead Soul. Or perhaps the beautiful scenery that I want to see can really be perfectly displayed on you. The walkers silently watched Han Dong's back. He did not move forward, and the rest of the journey would be left to Han Dong alone. He continued to go down along the circular passage. Unknowingly, Han Dong had stepped into the center of the underground, the Hall of Suppression. It was a huge, pitch-black underground space. There were 18 round pillars towering. These pillars were not used for support, but for the seats of the faceless priests. Priests wrapped in gray robes were floating at the top of the pillars, maintaining the state of their right arms stretched forward. Their palms were facing the independent stone room in the center of the hall, the place where the remnant pages of the Book of the Dead Soul were sealed. Rustle, rustle, rustle suddenly. The yellow sand of the cold skull had unknowingly covered Han Dong's calves. In the darkness, a powerful and familiar individual was slowly stepping out. Before seeing the appearance of the main body, Han Dong had already determined the identity of the visitor. Black Pharaoh. What's going on? Why do I feel so different from the walker? However, Han Dong, who was originally standing beside the Black Pharaoh, had disappeared. Not bad. Let me see how long it will take you to control the predetermined scroll. The candidate I have decided on should naturally be very different from the group of incompetent people from before. Under the condition of high concentration, no matter when the Black Pharaoh made his move or how long it took for him to open the door, Han Dong would definitely be able to accurately capture it. Furthermore, when he arrived at the suppression hall, Han Dong had already made full preparations. The space of consciousness was filled with crazy laughter, and every tombstone had a black balloon tied to it. The human wanderer, who looked exactly like Han Dong, was also standing under the talent tree, preparing to welcome the incoming consciousness attack. Count, who was still playing solo in the private theater, suddenly glanced at the 7 chapters of the mysterious Lord, placed at the corner of the piano. This demonic book actually started flipping on its own. Count's expression changed as well. He hugged the demonic book and walked out of the bloodhouse. In the silent and pitch-black hexagram stone room, Han Dong was not immediately corroded by the demonic book, but the whispers became louder. It was as if there was a corpse hanging upside down in the air, pressing its cold lips against Han Dong's ear and whispering, "Is this the real remnant page?" In the center of the room, on a platform engraved with ancient Egyptian texts, there was a different collection of remnant pages floating in the air. It corresponded to the predetermined scroll. As for the remnant page, it might be stored somewhere else. The predetermined scroll is equivalent to the title page, overview, and table of contents of a book. It should be the least threatening. If I can't even control this, it means that this book is not suitable for me. He stepped in front of the exhibition platform, without touching the remnant page. If he peeked at it directly, he would only see endless twisted and strange words. Not only would he not be able to understand it, but it would also cause the whispers to intensify. If he wanted to read it, he had to hold the remnant page in his hand. Without any hesitation, with absolute confidence and a thirst for knowledge, he grabbed the remnant page of the predetermined scroll with both hands. Buzz! In an instant, it was as if all the valves of a reservoir had been opened. A large amount of ancient, evil, and strange substances were used in Han Dong's body. His body, soul, and consciousness were all eroded by an ancient force that surpassed understanding. 1. A hook-like substance wriggled under the skin, even piercing the skin and blood vessels. In less than 10 seconds, Han Dong's body was completely penetrated. 2. A large amount of memory fragments used up the brain, recording the civilizations, continents, and planets that have been destroyed by the Book of the Dead. All the individuals who died because of the demonic book would have their consciousness imprisoned in the book. They were eternally enslaved by the book, and they were filled with endless anger towards all individuals who try to seize the Book of the Dead. 3. In the space of consciousness, one by one, the dead souls fell down like raindrops. Crack! Their necks were broken, or their spines were broken. But they climbed up in a twisted posture and launched a full-scale invasion of the space of consciousness. However, when they wanted to destroy and erode this space of consciousness, a beam of scarlet light flashed, and more than 10 dead souls were directly torn into pieces. His right hand held the holy sword. His left hand turned into a blood dog. Count's original body was standing under the talent tree, gnawing on a crazy laugh fruit. He also began to laugh wildly. Because the holy sword sensed the evil things, the sword body was also buzzing. Is that all? This count alone is enough to kill all of you. At the same time, faceless skull, prison world. Since the space of consciousness was eroded, the corresponding real space of the brain was also invaded on a large scale. One by one, the corporeal dead souls continued to fall into this prison world, trying to control the center of Han Dong's brain. But the moment this group of dead souls invaded, they felt that something was not right. Their bodies seemed to be bound by something, and they felt uncomfortable all over. When walking in this prison world, it was like wearing a heavy ankle chain, and every step was quite difficult, even if the big three and the doctor weren't here. There were also tens of thousands of terrifying wardens in the dark, watching them. Caw, 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 at some unknown time, the sky was covered by the crowman's wings. All kinds of deep ones, ghouls, and modified bloodkin wrapped in chains were attacking from different directions. Stone room. Han Dong, whose body was penetrated, didn't show any discomfort. In fact, it only took him a dozen seconds to adapt to the dead soul roots that penetrated his body. He didn't remove them, but instead turned them into a part of his body. From Han Dong's point of view, this body should be able to adapt to the Book of Dead Souls faster. As for the invasion of his body, brain, and consciousness, Han Dong didn't have any intention to care at all. He didn't even care at all. He knew very well that the most important thing right now wasn't to resist the invasion, but to control the book. Han Dong maintained a state of absolute focus. He completely calmed down and began to read the advanced scroll. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.